FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester, an Otis sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
A very good afternoon to you as we embark on another fantastic afternoon of sports talk in the Flower City. We welcome you into the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us at 95.7 FM, AM 950, and watching on our YouTube and Twitch stream at The Fan Rochester. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
So as you're watching the closing minutes, and maybe you stuck with the ceremony afterward, AFC Championship game, and you're probably thinking, I cannot believe that guy got to a Super Bowl. That guy got to a Super Bowl before Josh Allen. Let me tell you something. Here in the sports bar, that guy, of course Tommy DeVito got to a Super Bowl.
Hey! He got to a Super Bowl because he's a guy.
Hey!
We had Big Dom. We had Tommy DeVito. Maybe if Josh Allen was a Paisan, he'd be in the Super Bowl. But he's not.
You know, I could have backed up in Buffalo. You want the Trubisky. I don't know what sauce his mom makes, but you know me, we would have had a different outcome.
Yeah, that was discouraging. It was a bad game, and then the outcome, of course, is discouraging. Just gross. Want to throw up. Just ugh.
Well, it's a fine line, right? Because they won, they earned it, but the path was just so busted in the AFC this year. It's like what?
All season, us saying it was wide open. It was wide open. It was wide. I mean, maybe that. You know, we spent a lot of time last week wondering, like, okay, the emotion from Josh Allen, the emotion from the Bills, was it because they knew that loss was going to cost Sean McDermott his job, or was it truly because it was as wide open as we believed it was, and they just squandered their best opportunity in the postseason, the best path they could have possibly wanted in the postseason to get to a Super Bowl? Or maybe it's a little bit of both.
Probably the answer is both. Probably both. And everybody's looking for a comp, right? And my comp to what you're seeing is actually year one of the Patriots. Like year one, like, oh my gosh, what? Come on. The backup quarterback, they were gifted a win over the Raiders. Please, they were double-digit underdogs going against the Rams, and we all kind of pointed and laughed at that team. And at the time, we didn't really know who Tom Brady was. It's like, okay, he's okay. But the thought that maybe this isn't an accident. Maybe they do have pieces on defense. Maybe May will kind of evolve. It's just thank goodness we had the NFC Championship game.
The NFC Championship game felt more like the real Super Bowl. And after watching the conditions deteriorate in the early game, it made me I became a dome guy. I became a dome guy yesterday, Gino, and I'm watching from the comfort of the cave, and really there's no reason for me to become a dome guy other than the quality was just so much greater on a field where elements weren't a factor. And when you're talking about the Super Bowl, we haven't seen New England this postseason play on a field where conditions are fine, where you don't have a snowstorm or something slowing you down or affecting your strategy or your ability to execute. Because the execution was just so much. It was almost like we were watching a different sport in the NFC Championship game because of how sharp the execution was versus what we saw and how sloppy it was in the first game, largely because of the elements in the second half. And a lot is being made today of coaches not taking the points when the points are there. Do you view it as you take the 3 points or you lose 4 points when you kick a field goal? I mean, I have a hard time with it because there are a lot of coaches who are just going to be aggressive now. That's just the way it is. If it's fourth down, they're going for it. And in the case of Sean Payton, early in that game, you could have gone up 10-0. I don't blame them for going for it. At that moment, they had some momentum, and I think momentum is the thing that I look for when you're making that call. And you're the head coach, and you feel like, I've got the play, we've got the momentum, let's go for it. Sean McVay, same deal. Felt like we had momentum, went for it, didn't happen. Left points on the board. Or left points on the field.
Well, okay, two entirely different situations. And can I say one got it right, one got it wrong? I have no problem with McVay because okay, Seattle, we talk about their defense. Well, their offense is going to put up points. In the situation in Denver, did Peyton know the forecast? Did he know, hey, this is going to change in the fourth quarter? We really only have 3 quarters. Let's see if we can get to the fourth with a lead. And I'm not a fan of the one-size-fits-all, meaning, hey, it's great that Dan Campbell has this identity that he wants to always go for it. But you know what? You're in the NFC Championship game, and that's the one where, like, you should have gone, and if had you just kicked one extra field goal, maybe you would have gotten to the Super Bowl. So
maybe they couldn't kick because their kicker was preparing to back up the guard. The LA's kicker is thick. That dude is big. That guy could be a guard. I watch him warm up. I'm like, sheesh. Is he listed as a right guard on the depth chart?
Our kickers really, are they really football? I'm not trying to be cheeky. I'm
No,
looking at University of Miami kicker like, whoa, that guy's big too.
I think of kickers and I think of like Martin Gramatica, just like, slider guys that are, they look like, jockeys. They look like horse jockeys. That I don't know. Anyways, I knowing that the coach of my team is aggressive, and the same thing, didn't go for it on fourth, or went for it on fourth down, didn't kick field goals, and then at the end of the game, a couple weeks ago against the Rams, why didn't you just go for 2? Like, I get why he didn't go for 2, because on every short yardage situation, they were getting stuffed, and they weren't getting the points that they wanted, and they weren't converting on fourth and short. So I do think that there is a feel and there is a momentum that comes into it, but I don't know that I fault them for saying in that moment, we're going to go for it here.
Denver loses the game because Stidham loses his mind on the one play. The one thing you couldn't do, he did. Right.
You gave him 7 points. Yep. You gave him 7 points, a short field. Your defense was lights out up to that point, and you gave him life. So that's unfortunate. And Stidham is a backup quarterback in this league for a reason. And that play was, he threw a great ball to Mims earlier. Like, wow, they're going to win this game. Felt like they could rout after the first quarter. And the turnover was costly. And Jarrett Stidham is a backup for a reason. Mm-hmm. So we're set. The Super Bowl in a couple of weeks will feature the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. Seahawks favored by 4.5 right now over the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Show today. Lots of Bills talk. A couple of our experts, Dan Fates, 13-win Buffalo Plus, bottom of this hour. We'll also talk to Ryan Talbot, New York Upstate, and the Shout Podcast, 4 o'clock hour. As I don't know, is there anything earth-shaking today from the Bills here, Danger?
I think the biggest thing that you're wondering right now, if you're a Bills fan and you're invested in the coaching search, is it worth waiting 2 weeks for Clint Kubiak?
The answer is yes. Did you not watch Seattle yesterday? And, they have Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's making Sam Darnold look like the quarterback that the Jets drafted, who they had in mind at number 3 overall.
Do you feel more bad for the Jets or for the Vikings? I feel more, or the Panthers. I feel like I don't feel pity for the Vikings. I feel like the Vikings deserve whatever adversity they have in their future with their quarterback situation. You let a guy who won you 14 games, he choked in the end of the season. He played bad at the end of the season. I didn't see him choke this year, and he's in the Super Bowl. What did the Vikings do? Oh, that's right. They have more questions than answers. So foolish to let that guy walk.
Yeah, I do feel bad for Jet fan in this regard. Your hometown is lighting up your signature skyscraper in Patriot colors last night. What? Stop with that. No, if you're like a New Yorker, why is the Empire State Building in red, white, and blue? What do we have to do here if we're the Jets? The fact that Darnold, it wasn't just them Carolina had him in.
Yeah.
Carolina. Darnold becomes the first quarterback, Danger, to start in a Super Bowl on his 5th franchise.
And the first of the 2018 draft class to make it to a Super Bowl. So I guess I was right all along that going into that draft class, the guy that I wanted was Darnold, and Darnold gets it done. I was right, but nobody cares. Congratulations, Sam Darnold.
Let's back up to your original question. And this is what we do sometimes in the sports bar. It's like when you're talking with your buddies, you get off on tangents. Your question was, do you wait 2 weeks for Kubiak? Why not? Like, what is the pressing need right now for, we got to fill out the staff? I'm like, the staff will happen. Is there any rush? And you have the report from Schefter who says he wouldn't be surprised at all if all the vacancies are filled by midweek. I'm like, to me, that would be a mistake. It really would. And maybe Kubiak isn't the guy, but this job, of the jobs that are remaining, Danger, Buffalo, head and shoulders over everyone else. In case you missed it over the weekend, McCarthy goes to Pittsburgh. That's not a surprise. Cleveland's still open.
Yeah. It just guys back. Grant Udinsky withdrawing from the Browns head coaching search. He interviewed with the Bills yesterday. So for him, it's either return to Jacksonville with a new deal that they've offered him or become a head coach for the Buffalo Bills. That's the dilemma for Grant Udinsky if they're offering him that job. And today we hear Davis Webb, now that he's available and free to interview with the Bills, is interviewing in Buffalo.
Actually, that has been completed.
Good.
So the Bills just put that out minutes ago. So I'm left to assume that was kind of a Zoomy sort of thing. Like he's not getting on a plane.
And Davis Webb also gonna meet with the Raiders. I want to say for a second time. I want to say that he's already interviewed with the Raiders once.
Yeah, and Joe Brady's met with the Raiders for a second time.
Yep.
And if there's one thing that feels really distant, Danger, it's that Brady gets the nod here in Buffalo. He was the first one in for the interviews, and it just seemed like that felt more like a courtesy, knowing that he's getting interest from other teams. I would be stunned if it ended up being Joe Brady.
Where does Brady go?
We poke fun at the Raiders. You do a lot worse than that. Like the idea, you get Mendoza, you've got some runway, you've got a good tight end, Ashton Genty. If you can build up that offensive line, and if Tom Brady decides, hey, I'm going to help you out here a little bit too.
Arizona hasn't hired their coach yet.
No. So you have Vegas, Arizona, Cleveland, Buffalo.
I wonder, Arizona's been kind of quiet. Like, I don't hear a lot about what's happening with Arizona and who they're looking at and who they might be targeting. I wonder if Kubiak is in line for Arizona. We remember when they hired Gannon, Arizona actually waited for Jonathan Gannon.
Well, see, and that's where I'm trying to figure out here, Danger, at 866-4FN if you want to join us. Like, if you end up, if the Bills know it's Kubiak or Arizona knows it's Kubiak, is the whole interview process kind of a sham? Did this take place? Have you already met? Have you already talked to the agent?
Right.
Have you already, you identified the guy? The fact that we had an ex-Buffalo TV guy, he ran Empire Sports Network, come out on his own blog and say Kubiak is the choice. I'm like, wait a second. How do you know that?
Yeah.
How do you know that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. If you are a hiring manager at your job, or if you know or have gone through the process of interviewing candidates for a position, then you get the sense, if you're like me, you get the sense within the first few minutes of, I like this person. This person, I could see me working with this person. I could see us having a good working relationship and making something happen here. I imagine, a guy like Davis Webb already has that built in with the Buffalo Bills. Knows the players, knows Brandon Beane, knows Josh Allen, knows Terry Pagula. So that's an easy one for the Buffalo Bills. Kubiak, I don't know much about unless they have had that conversation somewhere along the way.
Yeah, and another guy that we haven't even mentioned, Anthony Weaver, okay, the Dolphins defensive coordinator, who a lot of people holding in high regard. My question is, does Terry Pagula introduce himself to Anthony Weaver? Hi, I'm Terry Pagula. Yes, I actually worked for you back in 2013, Mr. Pagula.
Or he forgot that he was a coordinator for the Bills back in the day. That's funny. I like Weaver as a defensive coordinator. I do want an offensive-minded guy as head coach of the Buffalo Bills.
I think it has to be offense, does it not?
It's not going to be Mike McDaniel. The Chargers officially announced his hiring We knew that he took an interview. No, he withdrew from his interview, right? He
withdrew.
backed out from his interview.
He backed out, and so today, and again, who does social media, not in the NFL, but in sports, better than the Chargers? They own the cycle when it comes to the schedule release. And so the Chargers today, Danger, they bring Mike McDaniel. He sits down in front of a camera, and there's like a fishbowl. And inside the fishbowl are just a bunch of folded up pieces of paper. And apparently, like these folded up pieces of paper have random questions. And Mike McDaniel doesn't know which one he's going to pull out. And as he's getting ready to pull out, he says to the camera, "This better not be a question about vaping." I mean, maybe he's in a better space mentally now if he can have that sort of self-deprecating humor.
I think he will go down as a guy who's better served as a coordinator than as a head coach. And also from this weekend, speaking of head coaches, it sounds as if Sean McDermott is going to take a year instead of get back into the coaching realm this season.
And why not? If nothing feels right.
Well, did I read? I think his daughter is a senior, and she's going to go to Notre Dame to play softball.
Yeah.
Why uproot the family?
Right. Don't you feel a little bit of empathy for McDermott that he's going to live in the town where he goes out and everybody, oh, sorry, Sean. Oh, how you doing, Sean? He didn't die. No. His time here is up. I always wondered how it was for like Andrew Luck, where I always thought it was strange that for years he retires from the Colts, but he still lived in Indianapolis. How does that kind of work? I think he would be doing the right thing for his family, and he will have other opportunities. I see a future where the Jets would come knocking. That would be
the
fun.
play, right? That's the play. Then you can come to Buffalo, take on Buffalo twice a year and try and stick it to your old team.
Yeah, there's going to be some rebuild, and Sean McDermott's resume, although not perfect,
he can build a culture.
Yeah, he can certainly do that. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. It was last week that we were introduced to Neil.
Hey, Dr. Neil.
So Dr. Neil is
How
here.
are you, buddy?
How are you?
Well, being introduced as a doctor may be the greatest thrill of my life. I mean, what more can I say after that? Thanks for taking my call, as always. I greatly appreciate it. So I have a little update for you that I thought you might appreciate, then I'll get to some Bills points. So I got an actual response from the front office of the Buffalo Bills to my $5,000 charity challenge.
I'm guessing the answer was no. What did they say?
Well, they said, and I'm repeating verbatim, and by the way, they did spell admirable right, so I was happy about that. They said, we only respond to credentialed media, which tells you that they want a bunch of bootlickers and a bunch of ass kissers. But I thought you'd like to know that your station was heard by directly the general manager of the Buffalo Bills. And speaking of that general manager of the Buffalo Bills, you watched this weekend where the New England Patriots, with a first-year coach in Mike Vrabel and a quarterback who throws for under 100 yards, goes farther along in their journey than Sean McDermott ever did. And not that there should be any residual any residual takebacks about whether we fired McDermott or not, but the very fact that Vrabel took in his first year his team to the Super Bowl, and McDermott had 8 years and didn't make it, tells you everything about what it means to be a Buffalo Bills fan. I mean, Bean just has not drafted a roster that has been acceptable. As we've said before, over 50 draft picks, 2 guys have made the Pro Bowl. And everything in that press conference from last week that he projected outwards, he's done himself. The Keon Coleman lie, Pagula saying it wasn't a power play when he gets literally a power play and more power. And as far as the coaching cycle goes, I think the Bills will screw this up royally. And if we're going to play the 6 degrees of separation game, where any person that's ever been involved in the NFL, like Phillip Rivers or the token, interview with Anthony Lynn, then we really have to ask ourselves, was it just enough to fire one person instead of firing both? Because the truth of the matter is that if the Pagulas were sincere about doing things differently, you wouldn't run it back with the GM, whom at best has been mediocre and has shown through his public statements to be a petulant narcissist. So I think, once again, it's a Band-Aid on a gushing geyser. And I think it's time to look at the fact that unless this team gets a Clint Kubiak, that's the only person that I can look at right now and say, if we hire him, that I am going to feel comfortable, or more important, feel confident that the Buffalo Bills front office knows what it's doing. Otherwise, if they're waiting for a 29-year-old wonder kid in Chicago or some guy that you said maybe Terry Pagula remembers 13 years ago on the roster, then the Buffalo Bills franchise, and I never thought I'd say this, is going down the path of being the Jets, a franchise of perpetual ineptitude and a place where careers go to die. And that cannot be the fate of the Buffalo Bills simply because we fire McDermott 5 years too late and keep a GM that's 3 years too late to the party.
Neil, great call as always. Lots to unpack there.
Dr. Neil, is that what we're going to call him? Doctor?
He sounds like a doctor. He comes off very, like, didn't Romy used to have like a bunch of doctors calling into the jungle every year for the smack off?
It's funny. Steve just writing in on X. That's really Trapper from Dana Point preparing for the smack off. Like, that's that type of level. There's a lot to unpack.
Well, what I like about what Neil said, and this is funny to me, that the idea that in his first year in New England, Vrabel got them to the Super Bowl. He had all those years in Tennessee with arguably a more talented roster than what he has now. Think about who he had on that roster. Offensively, okay, Tannehill, fine. But you had Derrick Henry.
You had A.J.
Brown. You had some players.
Simmons.
Yes. You had some players. And he could never get over in Tennessee. 1 year in New England, he gets over. And Drake May throwing for under 100 yards, it's icky. It's gross. I mean, it really did come down to that one play. It was the turnover, and it was the short field, and it was converting in that situation.
Well, maybe just the lesson here is about timing. Like, if Vrabel's coaching the Titans with that personnel, and by the end that personnel wasn't there, maybe the Titans are in the Super Bowl.
But you also think, it was a couple of years ago, I think expectations have been high for the Bills for the last few seasons, but we talked to Tim Graham at training camp, and I remember asking, maybe it wasn't training camp, what was it going to take? What's it going to take? And he just said luck. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of luck. And I don't want to say that what the Patriots did this year is lucky, but there are certainly some elements of luck in their journey here to get to where they are.
It's like there are opportunities everywhere in your profession. The AFC was one giant opportunity. One of my favorite sayings in life, Danger. The symbol for chaos is the same symbol as opportunity. All right, so all this chaos in the AFC, and like the Patriots won. And you know what? They'll probably be right there for the division title. And Neil, I can't dispute that the Bills are heading in the direction of the Jets. They got to get this hire right. They're not going to allow fans to debate the general manager, though. I can tell you that.
No,
that's not.
No, we only address members of the credentialed media members. Very good, Neil. Thank you for setting us on the right path. We've got a great show lined up for you. Ryan Talbot will be joining us next hour, covering the Bills for for NewYorkUpstate.com, Syracuse.com. And Dan Fates, 13 Wham and Buffalo Plus stops by next. You can do as Neil has done and join us. Pull up a stool on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com.
You're listening to the Sports
from consideration. Are the jobs still open? Chris Brown today on One Bills Live says that Buffalo has more to offer.
Because of the 4 jobs remaining, I think Buffalo's is clearly the most attractive. So because the Bills job is the most attractive, if you truly believe that as Bills ownership and brass, I think you say it's more important to get the right guy than it is the date we make the decision on the guy.
We will get the thoughts of Dan Fates, 13 WM and Buffalo Plus coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Sabres are red hot. They have won 18 of 22. Buffalo in Toronto tomorrow night. We'll have that game on the Fan. The Amherst hosting Hershey Wednesday and Friday this week. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. 866-432-6. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
1 week removed from the dismissal of Sean McDermott, the Bills find themselves in the middle of a head coaching search as we welcome in Dan Fates from 13 WAM Sports. Buffalo Plus. Dan, is it worth waiting the extra 2 weeks? If Clint Kubiak is your guy, do you feel like Clint Kubiak should be the guy that the Bills are targeting here, given everybody that we know they've interviewed up to this point?
Yeah, I think it's worth waiting. I don't know if he's their guy, if I'm being honest. I think he's obviously the hottest name, but it seems like from everything I'm hearing from Adam Schefter and the insiders that Clint Kubiak to the Raiders kind of seems like a formality. I know they're bringing in some other guys, but look, I really like what Kubiak showed last night. I think that obviously I've joked around. I think it really helps to have Jackson Smith and Jigba, and can he bring him along wherever he goes to be the next head coach? But he showed that what he can do, and that's not an overly talented Seattle offense, but he was in his bag yesterday and really kind of showed that. And he's got the most experience out of these up-and-coming new offensive minds with his play calling experience over the last few years. So you've got a bigger sample size there. But I don't know if he's the Bills guy, guys.
Here's the thing, if they do wait the 2 weeks, and it doesn't mean that Kubiak is the guy. I'm just wondering about the whole process. Like, are you actually
agents, more agents?
Got it. So really, I go back to the Gannon hiring in Arizona. Like, okay, they knew all along, and they didn't. This interview process is a little bit of a sham then, if you know the target, if you're talking to the agent, and maybe you're negotiating all along.
Yeah, I think it's, back alley channels and stuff like that. Obviously, Gannon was hired, on Tuesday after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So I think you're also gauging in insight. And again, this is me just trying to read the tea leaves and kind of dot my own I's. But obviously, all of this stuff is happening behind the scenes, which is with agents who are connected to the insiders, the Schefters, the Rappaports, and all those things. I really haven't heard Kubiak's name a lot recently, like we have heard with Davis Webb. Right. So, if the agent wanted to start a bidding war between the Raiders, who seemed like, Schefter was saying that they like today on McAfee was saying that they like he would have personnel control as well as cap space and the first overall pick. Why wouldn't the agent be putting out a bidding war between the Bills and potentially the Raiders if that were to happen? And, Brian Windhorst, fingers up. I'm just not hearing that. I think a lot of Bills fans want Clint Kubiak. I'm just not hearing it as much from the insiders, whereas Schefter on McAfee earlier today was saying it pretty much comes down to Webb, Joe Brady, Udinski, and who's the last guy I'm thinking? Webb,
Weaver.
Dable. One of those guys. So I think they're going offensive-minded from what, again, this is going off of what Schefter's reporting today on McAfee.
Dan, there's a team that still hasn't made a move on their head coach, and I feel like there have been we've heard less about who they're talking to than the other teams that are going through this process. That's Arizona. What do you think Arizona does here? I mean, is it leftovers for Arizona? I mean, what are they selling, and who do you think they end up with when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I think it is a tough sell. Obviously, they have confusion over the quarterback, and they don't necessarily have the first overall pick like you have with the Raiders, and you're going to have to find some way to eat that Kyler Murray contract, and so you're just kind of trying to figure out where that that team in the direction that they're going. And that's why at times, it is frustrating if you're a Bills fan as to why this hasn't been as much of a slam dunk for you move on from Sean McDermott. They've got to obviously have a guy, and you would, and I understand Terry Pagula saying their phones are ringing off the hook, and it's a big search, but whether it's because of the current roster, whether it's because of the current power structure and the command of personnel and the leadership that who's in charge there, I know it's Josh Allen, and that may be the trump card that does all of it. The Bills are still kind of kicking the tires around. Obviously, they wanted to talk to Davis Webb, somebody that's familiar. They just announced that his interview is completed. So they brought in 8 guys, and I believe 7 of them have all been on offense.
Funny, we don't talk about a coordinator who had the best rushing attack. you would think. Are we considering any chance here for Joe Brady? If not in Buffalo, does he land somewhere else, Dan?
Yeah, we were just kind of talking about that of like, where does he land? Obviously, and unfairly or fairly, like it just seems like, Schefter was saying, and again, I remembered it, Webb, Udinski, Dable, and Brady. But it was always kind of like the 3 guys of Webb, Davis, and Udinski, and then it's like, oh, and Joe Brady. Like, it's kind of an afterthought. I know he had a second interview with the Raiders job. I just am struggling to process where the ownership wants to go and if they want to break full ties of what Sean McDermott has. Like, obviously, if it's Brant Udinski or if it's Brian Dable or even Davis Webb, like, what's going to happen to Bobby Babich as, defensive coordinator and all of the coaches, really? Like, this is kind of the waiting, but we all expect there to be massive roster turnover because whoever comes in as the next head coach is going to want his guys and to fit his scheme and his identity and his culture. So all of those things are up in the air. We just haven't heard a ton about Brady, and I will give credit to the Bills. Obviously, they said it was an open search. They didn't have a front runner. They were going to look young, old, offense, defense. For the most part, they have kept everything pretty under wraps. We have not heard this guy wowed the interview. This guy did that in the interview. They've done a really good job of keeping that, close to the vest as they continue to go through this process. Schefter was saying on McAfee again that he expects all the jobs to be filled this week as early as Wednesday. So obviously reading kind of the tea leaves of where this is heading, I expect the Bills to have a head coach, announce one, I imagine, by Wednesday or Thursday.
Wow. Got a wow in the interview. I mean, that's important, Dan. There was Gene had a theory last week, and I subscribe to this as well, when it comes to whether you would go with somebody like a Brian Daboll versus a younger coach, a Dinsky or a Davis Webb, somebody who's kind of unproven. The idea that a guy that's done it before would push back a little bit more, offer more resistance to being into the organization. Does that make Daboll less likely to get this job? Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any truth to that? I kind of subscribe to that idea. I would want to think that Brandon Beane would want to mold and shape his guy if it's his hire and he gets first crack at hiring a head coach here.
Yeah, that's the main thing I've come across because I really haven't been involved in a coaching search. And when it was the Sean McDermott hire, like I was only been on the beat for 2 years. And so this is kind of my first time going through this. Some of the things I've learned, ego, and control are the things that I'm learning a lot about this. And that's the entire NFL. The reason I don't know exactly to the extent the relationship of Brian Dable and Brandon Beane. Maybe they have a great relationship. Maybe they completely see eye to eye. That's something I would imagine that it would be a guy that has been a head coach may push back more on the power structure that Pagulas and Brandon Beane are going to go with and what they've instilled. But maybe that's something that they want or don't want. They haven't shown their cards yet to do that. They have said, at the press conference, they want a CEO head coach. When it feels like Brandon Beane kind of is the CEO. So I guess I'm kind of caught a little bit in between what do they really want. I do think it's going to be offensive minded. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I love and respect Brian Dable more than certain members of my family. I think that his failures in New York, you learn from that. It's part of why I liked Joe Brady as the Bills offensive coordinator when they moved on from Ken Dorsey. Brady failed as an offensive coordinator in New Orleans, and I thought you learn a lot of that. Sean talked a lot about that, the scars the scars you learn from that. You grow from those scars that you have when you look in the mirror. That's a negative, though. We always think about these retread coaches, right? That's some negative connotation, some scarlet letter that these coaches have to walk around. And I was joking on the podcast we just recorded. I said, well, the Chiefs hired a retread, and that one worked out pretty well. So, like, this thought is like, yes, there's experience, but there's also the shiny new object, the unknown, the excitement, the up and coming, the whiz kid that you want to take the gamble on. And that's the risk of you don't know the magnitude of the head coaching seat until you've been in it, and you don't know what you don't know sometimes.
Yeah, it's Dan Fates, Buffalo Plus, 13 Wham, our guest here. Dan, I'm just coming to grips with that. There's not just the coach, but like everything is going to be new. Everything. And with that head coach that comes in, I want to know more about the coordinators, because this defense for years, it was Sean McDermott's defense, and Bobby, I can't imagine Bobby Babich being back. Tabor takes a job elsewhere with Miami. Like, let's just kind of start there. What will that defense look like next year, Dan? Because I could just imagine taking a machete to the roster right now.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I would imagine as well. A lot of new faces. And again, all of this, I can't really say with certainty one way or another, because even the offensive line that has question marks. I don't mean to take your question and pivot it to the offense, but that's obviously the most important thing. If Josh Allen is sitting in on these meetings and having, quote, input to what that is, I think the head coach is going to have input on whether they want to run gap scheme or whether they want to run, all the different offensive line. What's their running scheme? What's their philosophy with wide receivers? What's their philosophy and who they bring in as the defensive coordinator and the D-line coach and the cornerbacks coach and the safety? Like, all of that stuff, we're waiting. You're kind of in limbo here because you don't know what's going to happen until that coach comes in and gets to call his shots and get to bring in his people. So that's where you're kind of we're kind of sitting here in a waiting pattern to know what the rest of the staff shakes out to be, because I think it'll be based off of what that person wants. Now, if it's Joe Brady, maybe there's a lot more familiarity that stays there. I think that's unlikely, but the defense, I imagine, along with, I'd say 60% of this roster is going to be completely overhauled.
Grant Udinski is intriguing to me. He's young, he's kind of an unknown, but when you listen to him speak, he certainly feels like he fits that CEO role that we heard Brandon Beane talk about. He's somebody that when you put him in front of the media and he speaks at a press conference, he's not going to get rattled or say the wrong thing or flub like we saw with Mike McDaniel multiple times here at the end of his tenure with Miami. So I guess I'm curious about what you've learned about Udinski through this process, Dan, and whether or not, knowing now he's pulled out of the Browns head coaching search and it's either going to be Buffalo head coach or back to Jacksonville for the youngster.
Yeah, the more I think about it, like I said, what I want and what I think may happen, like my want is Brian Daboll as head coach and Davis Webb to be the offensive coordinator. That's what I want. I can see the Bills, though, taking the swing to go with the up-and-comer, the whiz kid, and to go Grant Udinski, who has, been one of those guys that has learned under Kevin O'Connell and has, learned under Liam Cohen and all of those kind of things. My concern is, and like you said, did some research, great with the media. We talked to Brent Martineau, like from down in Jacksonville, says he's unbelievably hard worker, last guy in the building, all of these things, great with the media, all that's great. It's just he hasn't done it. He hasn't called plays. Now, I know he's called, I think, some red zone is what I heard in Jacksonville, and the red zone numbers did improve this year when he took over that. But Liam Cohen ran the show, and he was the assistant. He was the helper, but that's Liam Cohen's offense. And when he was there in Minnesota, that's Kevin O'Connell's offense, and Kevin O'Connell called the plays. So that's where, like even Nate Schillhouse in the Rams, like he's obviously a big name that is linked to the Cleveland Browns. Hasn't done it because the guy that's really under fire and taking the shots in calling them is McVay. So that's the unknown. And I guess the way I think about it is that it feels like the Bills have been so close and that their runway now for the next head coach is shorter. It's a gamble, but maybe that's one they're willing to take, and to take the big swing, because Grant Udinski is 30 years old, guys. Like, I know he's up and coming, and maybe you're saying I'd rather be a year early than a year late on some of these guys like Davis Webb or Udinski. It just has – he doesn't have the scars, and maybe that's intriguing to a team, and maybe other people are saying, well, he hasn't had the experiences and the failures and having a 3-game losing streak and having to address the entire team. And how does that work? All of those kind of things is the big turning point. And he has no connection to Josh Allen. That's where I wonder. Josh has this input. He's in on these meetings. We know he has connections to Davis Webb and Joe Brady and Brian Dable. And what is that? What does Josh think about that? And those kind of concerns. And then what is Udinski? We don't know about who would be his offensive coordinator, who would be his defensive coordinator. Does he have a staff in mind? All of those things are massive question marks. But the more you hear about it, he's an impressive candidate that people around the league think very, very highly of.
Yeah, Dan, it's been such a wild week, right? I feel like I have to kind of touch on, what happened this time last week just a little bit. We haven't talked. Your opinion, are you buying Terry Pegula made this decision on his own based off of emotion in the locker room he saw after the loss to Denver?
That's the story they're telling. And again, it's tough to me to still, like I said, I joke around that, I didn't even shoot Sean McDermott on the sidelines walking off because I didn't have any inclination that this was his last game as the Bills head coach. And I know people, were on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Well, you guys were wrong. You said there was 0.00% chance Sean McDermott gets fired. And I answer back to that. You know who else didn't know he was getting fired? The players. That's who else didn't know because you saw their reaction. It is a big swing. And Terry Pegula, and I thought Jenna asked a great question saying, how do you – Sean and Brandon's success and failures have been so closely linked since they got here in 2017. And to remove one and to promote the other is kind of still one I'm trying to wrap my head around. That being said, that's Terry Pegula, and he tells the story, and we were all there too. We all talked about it on the podcast afterwards. Like, that was a heartbroken locker room. But I always thought that you moved on from head coaches when they lost the locker room. You saw that in Miami. You saw that in other places where it's like, yeah, the players just kind of quit. I never thought that was the quit. And if you wanted to say, and Terry did say, we felt like we hit the proverbial wall. I felt like they could have hit that more than the emotion and looking in Josh's face and his tears. Like, that felt a little knee-jerk more than the, Brandon Beane a year ago. I remember doing the story up in Buffalo when after the loss again on the postseason, he was like, I can't make any decisions on the roster for the next 3 days. The loss is too raw. I'm still too emotional. And it kind of feels like Terry made one of those emotional decisions from being in the locker room and seeing, how upset his players were. You saw Dion, fighting back tears. Josh as well. That's tough. I think very highly of Sean McDermott. The numbers and stats speak for themselves. And if you want to say you needed to move on and you need to clear house, I understand that. It just was kind of surprising to me that you clear houses firing the coach but promoting the general manager because it felt like their successes and failures were so closely intertwined.
Dan, McDermott now it sounds like won't be coaching in 2026. He takes a year off, and I think that's probably a good move for his family, who they would hate to see uproot when I believe his daughter's a senior and getting ready to go play softball for Notre Dame, and his son's a quarterback and everything that he's got roots in Buffalo and probably didn't expect for this to happen. But I have a feeling in 2027 he's going to be a name that a lot of people bring up for their openings. And I guess my question is, are we ready to see him twice a year when he's the new head coach of the New York Jets?
Maybe. I thought Cleveland could be an option for him just from the sense of, and I know, and Mike was like, I'd hate to see him in Cleveland in that dysfunctional organization. And I said, look at what he did in Buffalo, because the Bills were very similar to what the Browns are now before Sean McDermott got here and brought stability. And I think that's why maybe fans feel the most weird now because there's been some certainty. You knew they were going to win double-digit games. You knew they were going to win a playoff game. And I get it. If you want to say 13 seconds and you want to say all these things, fair. That's fair criticism that you didn't know if McDermott could get you over the hump, but he could get you to the hump. And you look at some of these plays again of how close could you be and all these kind of things. yeah, I think Sean would be a phenomenal coach, and maybe it's a little bit of that. I guess I kind of thought about it too after that press conference, which wasn't the worst press conference of all time. I just don't know if they hit the notes that they were meaning to hit and the narrative that they're trying to get out there, which is fair. That's the team trying to send their message on the moves that they made. But to me, it felt a little bit like, when we all thought Mike Tomlin was a good coach, and then we found out how crazy Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell were, and we're like, oh, he's a really good coach to keep this whole thing kind of under wraps. That's kind of how I feel about Sean McDermott, and that's kind of feels like the national narrative of Sean's a great coach. Don't know if he should have gone. You can kind of see it, but you better hit a home run on this next hire, because the next coach, Sean, when he got there, the expectations were, please get us to the playoffs. Now the next coach, it's, you got to get us to a Super Bowl. And I go back to, and that's why it's a little troubling, I guess, to me, why the Bills weren't such an easy hire for somebody. And maybe that's part of the candidates that are available in this cycle and things like that. But I go back to when Ben Johnson, pretty much said no to the Washington Commanders. Like, nah, I'm good. I'll stay as an OC for another year. I'll be another hot name the year round. And then when he went to Chicago, danger. They were going to throw a parade if he won 8 games, and just bring some stability in offense. 8 games ain't going to get it done in Buffalo in your first year. And this roster, like we all have said, whatever you think of this roster, it needs help. It needs to be reworked. And I believe it will be. But there are some big question marks with this roster, with David Edwards and Connor McGovern, and you're losing Aaron Cromer, who retired. Like there's big question marks that maybe aren't as slam dunk to be the next head coach of this team as we may have thought.
Last one for me, Dan. It's about Bean himself, who was this star, big baller Bean, and to where he is now. Is there anything this offseason that, can kind of just get the shine back on the GM? Because it feels like his Q rating has taken a tremendous dive here.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to make a splash. You got to fix your wrongs, and he said it. And he took guilt and responsibility and blame for all these kind of things. He denied that this was some power play, and Terry said the same thing. But he's got to make a move that it feels like he's been hesitant to do the last few years. And whether it was Jacoby Myers or whether it was Darius Slay, like he's got to kind of fix some wrongs, or whether it was Kyer Elam. Like there are more misses, it feels like, on the board. Or how about even Joey Bosa, Larry Ogunjobi? Like these are attached now to Bean, and I don't really want to hear moving forward about previous head coaches. Like this is now Bean's show. He is now the president of football operations, so everything now runs through him. But I expect something. Whether it's full shaking up of the defense, whoever the defensive coordinator they bring in, there needs to be some move to get fans back into the belief of the big baller Bean, because even some of the moves that he brought in this year and the extensions that he gave out to, whether, it's Terrell Bernard or other guys, like there needs to be some results and results in a hurry. Look, it just feels like everything has sped up. You have the teams that are available now that are still without head coaches. There's 2 teams that have 3 wins and 1 team that has 5 wins, and the Bills had a 12-win season. Like the expectations are different, and I would imagine Bean to understand the urgency now to which he has to make moves of, I don't want to hear about me personally, and I think fans too. Well, we're going to be shopping at the discount stores again this offseason because of the salary cap, because of Josh. I don't think he has as much of a leeway as he has in years past, because you knew the stability. Things are going to change, and I think that Bean has to understand the urgency of his position as well.
Dan, what are you guys working on in the Buffalo Plus channel that we can check out?
We keep having our ears to the ground, trying to see when the ripples on the water glass start to shake. Keeping an eye on everything. From what I'm hearing, it feels like it's Brian Dable, or it feels like Grant Udinski. From what I'm hearing, we will keep you updated. We just recorded a podcast. It'll be up momentarily. I'm uploading it as well as our thoughts on the coaching search. And we'll have plenty more coverage whenever the offseason hits. We're not there yet, but there will be plenty more content on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel, podcasts and updates, videos, pretty much every other day.
You're going to get 2 days off before heading to Indianapolis for the Combine, Dan. That's it this year. That's all.
We will be heading to the Combine. That is always very exciting. Hopefully, at that point, we will be talking to the new head coach. at that point and kind of getting the prospects. Wide receivers talk on Friday. We will be there throughout Friday to get to talk to those prospects because it sure seems like it's got to be wide receivers and multiple. But like I said, I've been hurt before. I guess I'm ready to be hurt again as the Bills look to an offseason to fix some of their holes in this roster.
Dan, great work as always. Appreciate the time, and let's do it again soon.
Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. Go
Thanks.
Braves.
Dan Fates, 13 Web Sports, Buffalo Plus. Hey, he's allowed. He's always welcome into the sports bar, even if he's a Braves fan. Come on.
It is mock draft season. Can I just kind of slip this in because Jeremiah has his first one up?
I haven't even looked.
I did.
Okay.
Bills picked 26.
Yeah.
Georgia linebacker C.J. Allen. Now, people are like, that's a glaring need. It really is. Matt Milano, I would be stunned if he's back. Terrell Bernard, that was Sean's guy. You're going to need a backer out there. Now, look, you're picking 26. I think you're just kind of trying to see what will fall to you at that point. I know it's not going to get anybody excited, Danger, but maybe they take care of the wide receiver position through the draft. We've got a lot of time to talk about that. My thought after listening to Dan, I'm kind of concerned they're not going to wait. You can wait, and then if you decide it's Udinski, then it's Udinski. But to me, it sounds, if you had to say who's it going to be right here,
Daboll.
You think it's Daboll?
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm saying that's what I think they'll do.
I'd be shocked. You would have, if you have all their young guys there. Now, who does Josh want? And how much say does he have?
Probably wants Daboll.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we don't know we know that the interview with Davis Webb was today. But again, these are two guys in Udinski and Webb, never have called a play, 30 years old, same age as your quarterback. And I know that shouldn't matter, but I think it does matter. And I think you want somebody that's going to push Josh Allen to be better than what he was the last time we saw him. And I'm not 100% sure that Daboll is that guy, but we know that Daboll did have some really, really positive moments with Josh Allen as the Bills' offensive coordinator.
Well, and I want to address this when we get to the other side after the break, but there is a prominent former Buffalo Bill sharply critical of Sean McDermott. And this is it. Maybe we could just say, just take it at face value. It's time for an upgrade. And when he presents this argument, now maybe more stories like this are going to come out of the woodworker.
We will get to that. We have time for your calls, 866-4FAN, and we'll also be joined in the 4 o'clock hour by Ryan Talbot joining us from Syracuse.com and the Shout podcast as well. That's all on the way in the Sports Bar.
You're listening 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
The Bills have completed their interview today with Broncos passing game coordinator Davis Webb. Phillip Rivers has withdrawn his name from consideration. And Webb is 30 years old. Steve Tasker offering his thoughts on the Bills going young.
I'm going to be okay with a young guy in the head coach's role because I've seen it work before, and I know that this building will carry a young coach in the first few months and get him up and running, and they'll have a chance to shift gears rather than have a learning curve. I think that's a real possibility. So I'm okay with the veteran guy, of course, but the right guy's the right guy no matter what age he is, I think.
Yeah. We'll talk more Bills later this hour. Ryan Talbot, the Shout Podcast, Syracuse.com, will be joining us here in the Sports Bar. Sabres are red hot. They're in Toronto tomorrow night. Buffalo's won 18-22. Busy week for the Amerks. They're home against Hershey Wednesday and Friday. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amerks. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the Sports Bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the Sports Bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the Sports Bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Back in the Sports Bar, we'll talk some Buffalo Bills football with Ryan Talbot from New York Upstate in the Shout Podcast. He's on the way in less than 20 minutes. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
Yeah, it has been an unbelievable week here as we're just trying to piece everything together. We mentioned your headline story, so the Bills have completed their interview. I assume this was virtually with Davis Webb. Webb also talking to the Raiders once again today. And no surprise, Phillip Rivers withdrawing his name. Okay, whatever. We were joined by Dan Fates, 13-win Buffalo Plus, and he's echoing the thoughts of Scheffner and others that, hey, this might be wrapped up here by midweek, which would lead you to think that maybe Clint Kubiak is not coming to Buffalo. We'll get the thoughts of Ryan Talbot coming in. About the move in the first place, and we've been waiting maybe for somebody to say something critical of Sean McDermott, because McDermott, a likable guy. We remember how this franchise was in the drought, and McDermott led the Bills out of the drought. But ultimately, there is just one stain that just kind of you're never going to be able to rub out from this area of Buffalo Bills football when you are that close.
13 seconds.
Exactly. And this is from a player that is well-respected, no longer in the league. Jerry Hughes, number 55, putting this out on X today. Quote, if the coach can manage to lose a football game in 13 seconds after the quarterback put together phenomenal play after phenomenal play, that coach should be fired. Seems like someone was living on borrowed time.
Yeah, I think he followed that up, too, with, he lost me when he went to the prevent defense.
Yep.
At the end of the game. Weird. I also saw Daquan Jones mixing it up.
So Daquan Jones congratulating Vrabel, and then somebody just says, hey, you're a Buffalo Bill. And he says, nope, free agent.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's when we're like, I'm okay if Daquan Jones goes to New England or somewhere else.
Well, I just felt like that. From the little bit of time that we've gotten to spend with him through the years, that it felt a little out of character.
Unnecessary.
But it's a business, and if that's how he's going to conduct his business, who are we to stand in the way of that? Maybe he ends up on another NFL roster, or maybe that's the end of the road for Daquan Jones. But, he was certainly heaping the praise on Mike Vrabel and the Patriots for getting past Denver yesterday.
And if you're wondering, can the Bills this week talk to Clint Kubiak? The answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
No. I don't know why they couldn't have done something really quick. Think about it. It just everything happened so quick, I guess, for Buffalo. You pointed out Arizona's awfully quiet.
Yeah, I don't know who they've zeroed in on. I could see the Browns going with Nate Scheelhaus, provided he takes their SAT test and passes it with flying colors.
If folks haven't heard, part of the Browns hiring process is you have to have a written essay.
the organization is just so that's their process. They are analytic based, and they have a process that they follow. And I don't think it's coincidence that there's been a handful of candidates that have just said, "Yeah, I'm good," whether it's Mike McDaniel or even Grant Udinski saying, "No, I'll go ahead and pull myself from consideration here." Yeah, it is. It's the Cardinals. The Cardinals are the team that I feel like we don't hear anything about who they're talking to.
There you go.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so Anthony Weaver today gets his second interview with the Cardinals. Mike LaFleur, somebody else that they've talked to.
And Raheem Morris.
Why would you do Raheem Morris? Just insane. How many chances are you going to give a guy?
Maybe as we like you as a coordinator conversation, perhaps.
Maybe. Anthony Weaver's interesting. Mike LaFleur, sure. Add another, branch of the McVay coaching tree into the head coaching ranks if you want to. I mean, I know that job is not desirable, and you've got a lot of work to do once you get in there and figuring out how you're going to deal with Kyler. But I was wondering about Kubiak. Like, where are any of these teams willing to wait the next 2 weeks before they can hire Clint Kubiak?
So what's the rush for Buffalo? Is it really you want to get the best staff that Kubiak or whoever, like you wait an extra week that you're going to lose out on this special teams coordinator or this. By the way, the Bills lost their special teams coordinator over the weekend, Tabor, who I thought did a decent job, but because, well, technically there isn't a head coach, he was allowed to make the lateral move to Miami, so he's now with the Dolphins. Is it really worth it? I think you got to get this right. I think you wait. You're the Bills. You have the best opening. Okay, who has the best opening right now? Bills, Raiders, Browns, Cardinals.
It's the Bills.
Yeah.
It's definitely the Bills. Even though they tried to put a stain on the opening with the press conference last week, as of right now, they are still the best opening. You could have argued that in the middle of last week after the press conference when there were still some openings to be had. But as these vacancies start to get filled out, Mike McCarthy most recently in Pittsburgh, out of who's left, it's the Bills. And I have to believe that Brian Daboll had an idea of what he wanted this to look like if they were going to move off of Sean McDermott. So what if it is Brian Daboll and Davis Webb as your offensive coordinator? You get your first crack at being an OC with the Buffalo Bills and with a guy that you're friends with at quarterback and a coach that you're familiar with in Daboll. What about the defense? And what does that look like?
Right, like that has to be part of the interview process. Like, what does your staff look like? Way back when Greg Williams got the job, because he impressed Tom Donahoe by kind of saying, "This is who I'd hire as my staff." Oh, okay, you're ready to go. Great. For a lot of these coaches, like, does Grant Udinski really have the contact? Or Davis Webb at 30 years old, where they can call up somebody, veteran, that, okay, come on in and run our defense. That is a huge part of this, too, Danger. You can't ignore that.
Or is it being just saying, I know who I want to bring in, that's who we're going to bring in, and you're going to have to, an arranged marriage where you're going to have to work with this guy because that's who I know I can bring in.
Wait a second. Let me Google something. Steve Wilks. I'm not being cheeky. I'm not being cheeky.
Steve Wilks is your defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Gino. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he was the defensive coordinator with the Jets.
Yeah. He got let go.
Yeah.
He was terrible. This is the same defense that didn't have an interception last year, remember?
He's going to be if you're going to go with the who does Brandon Beane know? That report that he preferred Wilks over McDermott?
Oh, God.
Oh, but Danger, you don't understand. They traded Sauce Gardner. They didn't have any talent.
Just yuck. It doesn't leave a lot to be desired, does it? I mean, it's just there isn't really a combo that when you're going to hear it is going to make you feel motivated or excited about what the future could look like. I know there's probably some people that would like Brian Daboll. Fates was on with us last hour. He's like, I want Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll's my guy. I want that guy to come back. I can't look past the how he presented himself with the Giants the last couple of years. The temperament, the just overall leadership of Brian Daboll didn't sit well with me in New York. So I'm not excited about that if that's the path that they end up taking.
My theory, my read on this is that they would never say this, right? But ego and control are a real thing. And Brian Daboll, he's got a big ego, and he's going to demand some things. And if you're Brandon Beane, do you really want to live in a world of pushback? Is Brian Daboll the type that would kind of just bring things and bubble up? The Bills have, up until last week, they've been really kind of keep the lid on things here, and you really didn't know what the differences were between McDermott and Beane. I don't think you're kind of going that direction with Brian Daboll. And I know a lot of Bills fans are like, yeah, that's exactly what we need. But for that reason, I don't think Beane goes in that direction. It'd be an easier hire that we're going to hire this hotshot young Udinski or Davis Webb. And maybe there's some growing pains. But you know what? If we fall short of our goal next year, well, look at all the improvements we made on offense. And the future is bright here with our new head coach. You're buying yourself extra time.
Yeah, and Joe Brady kind of not getting a second look.
That tells you what you need to know, right?
Yeah. Getting a second interview with the Raiders. But we've yet to hear if he's gotten a second look with the Bills. I don't think he's gotten a second interview yet with the Bills. And as far as what Cleveland does, again, who knows? I mean, the way it looks right now and the way you see guys backing out. We had Mike McDaniel last week. You had Grant Udinski today. I mean, it's going to be being Schwartz because he's the only guy that's there that actually understands how they do and why they do what they do.
Well, couple thoughts here. One, who has the worst head coaching search? The Cleveland Browns or Penn State football? I think it's toss-up. Two, you were mentioning, all right, arranged marriage for, all right, we're Steve Wilkes. I just brought up an example. But in Cleveland, apparently that's going to be the case. Like, this is Schwartz, and he will be your defensive coordinator. But I'm just wondering, when he was in Buffalo danger, that was a nasty defense.
They got after it.
Yeah, and why did Schwartz leave? It's because they hired Rex Ryan, and that would never, ever, ever work. Oil and water. Schwartz knew Rex wasn't going to run the Jim Schwartz offense. It was a defense. He was going to run his own. Bringing in Jim Schwartz to Buffalo? Okay.
I'd listen to that.
Yeah, people would get excited about that.
I'd listen to that. Rivers withdrawing from consideration for the Bills head coaching job. I mean, if you blinked, that story, came and went. For as much noise as it made Friday afternoon, it turns out Phillip Rivers not really interested in being the head coach.
So what was that all about? I think we heard it like, oh, okay, so this is somebody who wants to get into coaching and has a name and shares an agent with Josh Allen. Why not go through the process? And then he goes through the interview. Did he not realize all that goes into being a head coach in the NFL?
Right.
Or did he really think he had a shot at this and then over the weekend realized, no, I'm not getting a second interview?
Or maybe just not the right time to do it. Again, if McDermott doesn't coach in 2026, I think it makes sense when you consider his family is rooted in Buffalo, his kids are in school. Why upset that if you can avoid it? Sit out for a year, come back. If you're Phillip Rivers, you have 18 kids. I mean, you might be waiting a little bit longer than Sean McDermott for your next chance, but it might just be a better spot for him to be back home with the family, coaching high school football and coming back to the NFL when his name is called, if it's called. Mike McDaniel not even doing the interview with the Bills was a little surprising to me.
Yeah, he pulled his name out. Again, Dan Fates brought up a good point. It's really, a lot of it might be agent kind of driven.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, you, this is kind of a go through the motions thing here, Mike. Do you really want to do this? I would have done it just for the reason of, hey, you're talking to Mike McDaniel, and how did he go after your defense? What did he think of your personnel? it's the rare opportunity. You get to talk to, well, not a divisional opponent anymore, but a divisional opponent from 2025 that torched you in November.
Yeah.
What can you learn?
It sounds like he wasn't really willing to give up any of his trade secrets.
He's going to go to the Chargers,
Mhm.
and I would think that offense might be fun. I mean, that's a radical departure, Danger. If I'm thinking boring offensive coordinator.
Greg Roman.
Boring.
Yeah.
Boring. Stuck in 1982. To Mike McDaniel, where we goof on him, but he's got thoughts on speed and how to design an offense. He did a great job in San Francisco. I'm sure he'll do a great job for Jim Harbaugh, too.
Now, I'm not going to say that this is a big story because it hasn't been an event that I think we really care about.
Oh, who cares?
But it just, you know, when you hear this, you're like,
I know where you're going.
You're like, oh, God, what is Shedeur Sanders being added to the Pro Bowl as a replacement? I mean, I guess I would care if I cared about the Pro Bowl, but I don't. And they're just adding names now to try and gather some attention for the event.
So the Pro Bowl is this Sunday, and this is where it stings. This is where, oh my gosh, football is ending. We haven't gotten really to the meat of the NHL, the NBA season. We're still weeks away from spring training. This sucks. And I remember sitting, it was in Orlando. I'm trying to watch this. And I would imagine, like, if you're anyone who's gone through the rigors of an NFL season and you have options, if you're a quarterback, like, how many guys had to say no for you to get down to Shedeur Sanders?
Right. I mean, if Shedeur Sanders can be in the NFL Pro Bowl, Bronny James should be an NBA All-Star. What are we doing?
Mitch Trubisky had 4 touchdown passes in one game, right? Like, his ratio better than Shedeur. Like, why not Minch? Right?
Yeah. He's got that Nickelodeon Valuable Player Award that he can hang his hat on from back in his time in Chicago. Certainly a bigger name than Shedeur Sanders. Well, for what it's worth, I don't know if you're into the Pro Bowl games or
no,
but Shedeur Sanders will be there. Show up and say yes, I guess.
Good for him.
We got to get to Ryan Talbot. Covers the Bills for Syracuse.com, NewYorkUpstate.com. The Shout podcast as well. And we'll start to talk a little bit more about these coaching candidates for the Buffalo Bills next on The Fan.
You're listening to the
Stand out from the rest? Odyssey Rochester, the owners of this radio station, are looking for you. Call Mike Johnson at 585-423-2946. Odyssey is an equal opportunity employer.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Another interview in the books today for the Bills, talking with Broncos passing game coordinator Davis Webb. Phillip Rivers has withdrawn his name from consideration. The job's still open. Chris Brown says Buffalo far and away the best.
Because of the 4 jobs remaining, I think Buffalo's is clearly the most attractive. So because the Bills' job is the most attractive, if you truly believe that as Bills ownership and brass, I think you say it's more important to get the right guy than it is the date we make the decision on the guy.
Ryan Talbot, the Shout Podcast, Syracuse.com, will join us next year in the Sports Bar. The red-hot Buffalo Sabres. They won again on Saturday. They're in Toronto tomorrow night. The Amherst continuing their homestand. Hershey coming to town. 2 games Wednesday and Friday this week. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
I don't think they're worried about missing out. I think the guys that have been hired were not high on their list, were not as high, and I think they're looking for the right guy, and I think they've got a couple of guys they like. I think Davis Webb, I think Udinsky, I think Kubiak are high on their list. They're high on their list, and for good reason.
Here's Tasker earlier today on One Bills Live here on the Fan Rochester as we welcome in Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, and the Shout Podcast. So you get the Schefter report, Ryan, saying that he would be surprised if these coaching vacancies are filled by the middle of the week. Yet we know that Clint Kubiak is coveted, somebody that they won't be able to move on to until the Super Bowl is done in a couple of weeks. Do you wait 2 weeks if you're the Buffalo Bills and Kubiak is your guy?
Unless one of these other candidates just blew the Bills away in the last, 24 to 48 hours or over the first interview window, you should absolutely wait. I know the downside to that is building the staff, the coordinators, and the rest of the coaching staff. And by the time the Bills could eventually hire Kubiak, who knows what would still be out there. But you want the best candidate. This is a job where you are trying to get over the hump and get to a Super Bowl. So really the Bills should not be in any kind of rush.
Ryan, it's just kind of interesting to me that, number one, 30 years old, whether it's Davis Webb or Grant Udinsky, I don't know if I have a problem with the age. It's your thoughts on the lack of experiences. Both of these candidates right now, they've yet to even call plays in this league.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the downside when it comes to Udinsky and Webb. Webb's obviously played in this league. Udinsky has a great offensive tree that he's learned under a few years with Kevin O'Connell as, assistant to the head coach. Kind of got to experience what it's like to be a head coach in the league in that role. Liam Cohen this past year, and he's gotten a ton of praise. He's a football junkie, a brilliant teacher by all accounts, but there's no play calling for him or Webb. Webb, I think, called the calls for Denver in one preseason game. So, I mean, that's really nothing at the end of the day. So you have to look at it from that aspect. Who are you bringing in as your coordinators? Because if you don't have that experience, you think you want to have someone that you can lean on that has some actual play calling experience on the offensive side of the ball. You want to bring in someone on the defensive side of the ball as well, obviously, that can help in terms of maybe shifting what this defense looks like. Maybe it's more of an aggressive scheme, whatever the case may be. But, yeah, with these young offensive minds, they're going to have to really have a good idea for an offensive coordinator that can come in there and in many ways assist them.
Ryan, what about a guy that checks a lot of boxes that the team is familiar with and a guy that's had success with the team? I don't feel like Joe Brady is getting a lot of run when we talk about who the Bills would be interested in. Why is that?
Yeah, I think that you can probably look at some of the criticism that he's had in games, some of the route concepts
that he's had with the receivers. I know that the Bills, in terms of overall stats, have been a top 10 unit the last 2 years. But it's been very difficult sometimes for Josh Allen in this offense. And obviously, Sean McDermott would allude to that sometimes after a game. It shouldn't be this difficult for your quarterback. And I think that's one thing that could count against him, despite having overall success here in Buffalo. Why was it so difficult for the Bills in those moments or in games to really move the ball, and the way that guys weren't able to get open? Was it a personnel issue? Was it the way that he's diagramming things? You're right. He seems to have, of all the guys that have received an interview, he seems to be among the bottom tier of candidates when we're talking about them. We're talking about Dable as a legitimate possibility. We're talking about these guys that don't have the experience in Udinski and Webb, Kubiak, who has 2 years of play calling experience yet. When you talk about Brady, there's only a few candidates that he's being put over.
Yeah, Ryan, what's interesting, and Danger and I are trying to connect dots here, and you brought up, hey, whoever you hire, you've got to fill out a staff here, and I think we can base this off of, okay, you're not going to have Bobby Babbage back running the defense. Hard for me to imagine that. With that being said, if you're going to have a Webb, Udinski, fill in the blank here, who might be one of the coordinators out there? And Danger and I said jokingly Steve Wilkes, that if Brandon Beane is going to make a recommendation, who might be some of those guys? Could one of those guys be Anthony Weaver? Do you think Anthony Weaver is going to get a head coaching job? And could he come back to Buffalo here?
Weaver's getting a lot of interviews. I think that I just don't know if he's going to land one of those jobs that are still available. So I could see him certainly coming in, taking over the DC role for the Bills. Had some time in Baltimore and then obviously Miami most recently. The overall stats haven't been phenomenal, but at the same time, there's been some promise. I've looked at some other names out there. I think Schwartz ultimately gets the Browns job, but he's a name to keep in mind, a very aggressive defensive coordinator, a lot of experience, someone that you would love with a first-time kind of head coach in terms of feeling good with that side of the ball. Raheem Morris, his experience, obviously Rams, DC, Atlanta head coach the last 2 years. Jim Leonard would make a ton of sense, especially if Webb was somehow ends up getting this job. They spent time together in Denver. Was the assistant head coach, defensive backs coach. Obviously, we know how good that defense is and was. And then there are some other guys out there. Al Harris is an up-and-coming coordinator, former player in this league. He's been working with secondaries more than anything else, but the results speak for themselves in Dallas and Chicago, where his units have led the league in interceptions, and he's had a few different all-pro players in that time. So, again, do they go with someone that's up and coming, maybe like an Al Harris? Do they go with someone that's done it before, Raheem Morris or Schwartz? That is the one good thing. There seems to be some decent options out there for defensive coordinators.
We know a little bit about what Davis Webb is from his time here and what he's been, and that he has a relationship with Josh Allen. Udinski feels like the wild card to me because he is a young guy, and you mentioned it. He's got this pedigree, and he's come up through this tree of Kevin O'Connell / Sean McVay. What do we know about Udinski? And when you talk about, when Brandon Beane talks about this being a position where you're the CEO, you're forward-facing, and you're the voice of the organization, boy, when I hear Udinski present, he feels like he would fit that role pretty well.
He does, and that's one of those things where you can ignore the age, where you're going to have some players on this roster that are likely going to be older than you at times early in his tenure here, but he assumes that CEO level. I think he can get the respect of every player in that room, whether they're familiar with his story or not. He was living out of his car for a while to pursue a football career. I mean, someone that is just obsessed with this, always thinking about around the clock. A really good interview with Liam Cohen where he praised him and talked about how he's going to end up being this great coach in the league. And Kevin O'Connell has had nothing but good things to say. And when you've been with guys like that, I get that you haven't called the plays, but they're both very good leaders. I know Cohen's only had 1 year as a head coach, but by all accounts, he really did help in terms of shifting the culture a little bit in Jacksonville, really helping that offense get together and work really well in year one. So I like the guys that he's worked with, that pedigree. And at some point, maybe the Bills need to be that team that's willing to roll the dice on an unproven entity that can be the next maybe Sean McVay.
Yeah, we're talking to Ryan Talbot, the Shout Podcast, Syracuse.com as well here in the Sports Bar. The beginning of this, like a lot of fans, and I'm sure you heard this too, Brian Daboll, perfect fit. And ultimately, maybe that's where they go. But do you subscribe to my theory here, Ryan? It's this, that I think he's not a fit because his personality is actually too big. That Brandon Beane, now that he's emboldened with this new role here, that he's going to want somebody that he can control. I would think that Daboll might be the type of person that would push back a little bit here. Will Brandon Beane be looking to get somebody that maybe he can control a little bit more than Brian Daboll?
I mean, that makes sense because of this new role as team president and how he's, even though with the promotion, all eyes are on him for the foreseeable future, the next few years. So in a way, he might want to be able to have that power dynamic. I love Brian Daboll. I love his relationship with Josh Allen, how this offense looked under him. I think he could put together a really good coaching staff, but he also has to answer for some of the strained relationships he's had, obviously with McDermott here in Buffalo, Wink Martindale with the Giants, some of the sideline outbursts, going into the tent this past year when Jackson Dart had the concussion. I mean, he's had some flaws, some very noticeable flaws for that matter. And as much as I like him, he has to be accountable for that too. So it's fascinating because all of these candidates, you're either going with an unknown or maybe a retread that's had some issues in this league. And what the right decision is, that's going to be up to Brandon Beane. And this is a huge decision because, like I said, despite this promotion, if the Bills don't pick up right where they left off in terms of being a double-digit win team, a Super Bowl contender right out of the gate, that reflects poorly on him.
We have breaking news about the Bills coaching search here. Danger.
Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
Ryan, that's our sounder for breaking news. Adam Schefter putting out the Bills have requested to interview Rams pass game coordinator Nate Schliehouse. Schliehouse also is interviewing for the Browns for their head coaching vacancy. Another name that certainly comes from a good tree that, quite frankly, other than that, don't know too much about here at this point.
So actually, I put out an article on the day Sean McDermott was fired, and he was actually my top candidate at that point in time to take over for the Bills. And I'm going to pull that up right now as we're on. I actually used his picture for the article as well. All right, so he is one of the more intriguing options, 35 years old, from the McVay coaching tree. McVay, though, raved about him this year. He's a great coach, great leadership, great capacity for the game, similar to a lot of our other head coaches. First and foremost, great character. There's an ability to be able to connect with all different types, which obviously he would need to do. And then he added there's an ability to own the game from an all-22 perspective, and he's excellent. I've really enjoyed working with him. He's a great person, first and foremost, great family, been outstanding working with the receivers, but he has a tremendous impact on our team and our group as a whole. So the thing about him is he was kind of poached by the Rams recently. He was at Iowa State before that, believed to be the heir apparent there to be the next head coach of Iowa State. So, people have talked about this brilliant offensive mind. Same category I'd put in with Udinsky, and Webb being like this savant, great mind. I think he's a little bit older, mid-30s, but I love this. He's been also pegged to the Browns as their favorite. I don't mind the Bills whatsoever, picking his mind. If they wanted to reach out to LaFleur there as well, the offensive coordinator of the Rams, I don't think that's a bad idea. So, continue to look at this. And that tells me then that the initial report earlier today by Schefter with all these jobs likely being or potentially being filled by Wednesday, it tells me the Bills are still opting to play on the side of being patient and seeing what the best options are.
Does anybody have play calling experience outside of Daboll and Brady? I mean, does Schliehouse have any of that in his wheelhouse?
Not in his time with the Rams, obviously. I think you could I'd have to go back and double check that for the college perspective. Former quarterback himself, though, in the college ranks. But yeah, no, I think he's another one that's also very inexperienced. I mean, my first line was that the Bills want to go bold. He's one of the more intriguing options available. So
he lacks in that area. But again, what are the Bills trying to do here? I think they're trying to be aggressive in finding this great offensive mind that can really put this team over the top.
Yeah, we're talking to Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com, the Shout podcast, as it's been quite a wild week. Sean McDermott, are you surprised that from all indications that he's going to sit out till at least a year and see what comes up this time next year, Ryan?
Initially, I would have been surprised, but you look at the jobs that are already filled up by the time he was dismissed by the Bills. And then what was left? I thought, okay, well, maybe Pittsburgh will give him a call, and that never came to fruition. And as you look at the jobs that are remaining, it sounds like he doesn't want to be part of a complete rebuild, and that's certainly what it feels like with the Raiders, what it feels like with Arizona. So I just think based on the lack of options, he's probably making the right decision to sit out a year. And I would advise him to go the Mike Vrabel route. Go out and visit teams this year at training camps and pick the brains of some coaches that he really respects in this league and better himself so that way when there is a opening or potential many openings, obviously, after next season, not only can he stand with his resume with the Bills and his win-loss record, but here's what I did in my year off to rejuvenate, refocus, make myself a better coach, and I think that can go a long way with teams.
So let's play this out, Ryan. Let's look at the openings that are still available in the NFL. I want to get your take. I think you said earlier Schwartz is who you believe will end up in Cleveland. What about Vegas? What about Arizona? And ultimately, right now, if you had to guess, who do you think ends up with the Buffalo Bills?
So Arizona is a complete wild card to me. I'll be the first to admit that. I have no idea there. I think the Raiders are Buffalo's biggest competition for Clint Kubiak. And that sounds funny because you would think that Josh Allen would be an obvious choice if you're a coordinator coming into this league. You would go with the Bills. But, man, if I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the Raiders, you have the first overall pick. You're going to get Mendoza if that's who you love. You could even – there's been rumors in the that I've seen on social media about maybe trading the pick for an established QB. I don't think that'll necessarily come to fruition, but – you get Mendoza, you have a ton of salary cap space, and, you have the vision to mold that offense into whatever you want. So I think the Raiders are sneakily appealing to a guy like Clint Kubiak. So I'm actually going to put him there with the Raiders. And for the Bills, I keep kind of going back and forth between, Dable in terms of if they're going to go with the established route, but Udinski is my current favorite for the job there.
Yeah, I can speak on behalf of Danger. We both had a ton of calories yesterday. We're out watching football snowed in.
Yeah,
Ryan,
those two words together.
Ryan Talbot, our guest here, and you wrote a little bit about this too. I was surprised, like, wait a second, Chris Tabor goes to the Dolphins, lateral move. Well, he doesn't know. I guess I can't fault him, but how big a loss is that for the Bills here, Ryan? Because honestly, if I had to say if there was going to be one coordinator that might have stuck, it might have been him.
Yeah, I think it's a loss. There was some pushback on social media from fans about the penalties that the units had, and that's true. There were a ton of penalties on returns and things like that, but he can only coach you to a certain extent in terms of not holding and drawing those penalties. But you look at what he did with Ray Davis in that return game. I thought that the coverage units were a lot better this year than in years past, and this was without maybe like players that he would then try to bring in this year and going forward. He was hired at a time last year where he maybe didn't have a ton of say in the personnel that he would be working with on the special teams units. But you're right. Once a head coach is fired, you're kind of on an island there where do I wait and see if I get retained or should I go out? And teams are usually pretty good about letting you out of your contracts or letting you take a parallel move if they're without a head coach. And I'm assuming that's what happened in this case, but that's a good get for Miami. He has a long track record of having good special teams units. So it's just another area that the Bills now have to go out and try to address.
Ryan, I'm absolutely disgusted by the Super Bowl. I can't believe that New England is back already, that we're having this conversation about this team again. And for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to try and, plug my ears and block out all the noise around the Patriots. The idea that Steph Diggs is in a Super Bowl before Josh Allen, the idea that Mike Vrabel in his first year with New England is in a Super Bowl when Sean McDermott had 9 years in Buffalo to try and get there. I mean, none of this sits well if you're a Bills fan.
No, and listen, Lady Luck was on the side of the Patriots this year. My bold prediction is next year they don't even make the playoffs. Trent Dilfer's sitting here saying that he even did more with that Ravens team to get them to the Super Bowl than what Drake May's done. May has been a disaster in the playoffs with turnovers and sacks. Wasn't very good yesterday, obviously good with his legs. But you look at how this played out. They had a historically easy schedule, and the Bills have to be kicking themselves to not win a game against Atlanta and Miami or the first match against New England, because if they were to win the division and have that 2 seed, they would have had this cakewalk where you went against a Chargers team that had no good offensive line and was just kind of falling apart, against a C.J. Stroud team that, Stroud just was throwing up all over himself essentially on the field, could not do anything right in that matchup. And then you get a backup quarterback in Jarrett Stidham. It's the easiest path that I can remember. And, if you're still doubting Sam Darnold, then maybe the Patriots can put this all together, win the Super Bowl, which would disgust Bills fans. I tip my cap to them. I do think Vrabel's a very good head coach, but man, oh man, in terms of everything falling their way this year and throughout the playoffs, it could not have been an easier path.
Now, Ryan, last one for me, and it's just kind of a point to our audience here. I'm just going to go way off script here. We haven't talked on air, actually, since after the Bengals game. Now, we tried to work something out for Jacksonville, but with flight schedules and everything, it just kind of didn't work out. And this was a story going back to November, but I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it, and had some time over the holidays. Not only are you right there with Perino in the opening scene of the love story Hallmark movie, the lead has her arm on you? How did you, Ryan, man? You have an IMDb page now, I would assume.
No IMDb page, but front coverage on the Olean Times-Herald newspaper. So that was big time for my mom when she was going through the supermarket and came across that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I had the lucky seat at the at bar bill at the bar stools, where I was just right between where she was going up to the bar to get the drink, and she had lived that part, and it made sure that I was in a Hallmark movie. So I thank Helen Roden for that, because I easily just could have been someone that was there in the background but not really seen.
I think what Gino is angling for here, Ryan, is he'd like to represent you for your future roles in upcoming Hallmark Christmas classics.
I'm all for it.
You don't get paid
Give
for
me
that,
some more parts.
right? That was strictly extra show up. You're not getting paid for that, right?
No, we got paid for it.
Oh, look at that. Little extra cake.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now Gino's eyes perked.
Wow.
Now he definitely wants you to
See?
sign on the line, which is dotted. Gino will be representing you and Matt moving forward in your acting endeavors.
I love it.
What are you guys working on that we can check out this week at Syracuse.com and the Shout Podcast, Ryan?
Yeah, right now I'm actually about to hit publish on a story where Jerry Hughes was very outspoken about Sean McDermott and how the firing should have happened long ago. Probably the first player that's really been vocal on the other side, where McDermott had a ton of current and former players praising him and seemed very upset by the news. Hughes pretty much came out and said it should have happened after the 13 seconds game, which he was on that roster. So that's that one thing coming out now. We had a podcast today. We'll be updating the coaching search throughout the week, both on NYF.com, Syracuse.com, and I'm sure we'll pod as well.
Ryan, great stuff. Really appreciate the time, and this is going to be a busy week, so we'll be listening to you and Matt. Appreciate it, bud.
Hey, appreciate you guys.
Thanks.
There's Ryan Talbot covering the Buffalo Bills at Syracuse.com. You can hear him on the Shout Podcast with Matt Perino. And Perino joins us tomorrow, as he usually does, every Tuesday, right around 3:25.
So the news that has broke here in the last half hour, add Nate Schlierhaus. He would be the 9th candidate the Buffalo Bills have talked to.
How many interviews have they had?
9 times.
This is just, they've requested permission to talk, which of course he will. He was a quarterback at Illinois, and he's one of only 2 players in Big Ten history to throw for 8,000 passing yards and run for 2,000. So I don't know if that factors in at all. Like, okay, this guy in the Big Ten could actually play at the quarterback position, but he really gets high marks. It was really his time at Iowa State as a coach that kind of propelled him. That's what caught the eye of Sean McVay.
Interesting. All right, we'll see how that plays out, and we'll kind of keep tabs. If Schefter's reporting is accurate, he's believing that by the middle of this week, these coaching vacancies will be filled.
Yeah, and Talbot said he was going into this number one candidate. Chris DePasso had him ranked number one, too.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of attention, and the Browns, have talked to him, and I want to say that that's the guy that they want to bring in. I don't know that it's going to happen because, well, they keep asking him to, do a little extra homework and make sure you study up for your SAT that we've got coming up. Midterms on the way.
You were saying that sort of tongue-in-cheek, but honestly, if you have to write an essay?
Yeah.
Danger, you've interviewed lots of people. Have you ever made them write an essay?
No, I was saying earlier, I think if you're in a position, if you're a hiring manager or you're in a position where you can interview somebody for a job, you kind of can tell, at least I can tell fairly quickly, okay, I can work with this person. Our personalities are going to get mesh. We're going to be okay. Or this is going to be tough. No, I don't know that this is going to work. The chemistry is not going to be there. It's just not.
It's tough, though, because if you get somebody that knows the basics of sales, that's what we're trained in, Danger. I can win you over here in 10 minutes. So I look at Tom Donahoe fell into that trap with Greg Williams. Greg Williams, great defensive coordinator, really bad head coach for Buffalo. And I thought Dan Fates brought up a good point, too. It's like, yeah, these guys can all, talk about X's and O's, and I'm sure they'll wow. You don't know until you're actually in that chair leading men. How do you handle crisis management and all those things? And say what you want about McDermott. By and large, he was pretty good at that part of it.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I don't think you can complain about him being the front-facing CEO type person that McDermott was that Bean was referencing last week in the press conference. I think McDermott did a great job of that, better than we've seen in a long time. Yeah, I I don't know. I do like the idea of somebody who has some experience in calling plays. Call me crazy.
Yeah, just a little bit. I just think it's kind of crazy too. Like, oh yeah, Joe Brady.
Yeah. All right, we got to get to happy hour. Lots to get to. We'll give you the latest on the coaching carousel. We've got a round of shots coming up, and we have time for your calls if you want to pull up a stool at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger. Rochester. WROC-AM, WBEE HD2 Rochester, and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
The Bills have completed their interview today with Broncos passing game coordinator Davis Webb. Phillip Rivers has withdrawn his name from the Bills head coach consideration. Adam Schefter just reporting the Bills have requested permission to talk to Rams passing game coordinator Nate Schlielas. Steve Tasker offering his thoughts on the Bills going young.
I'm going to be okay with a young guy in the head coach's role because I've seen it work before, and I know that this building will carry a young coach in the first few months and get him up and running, and they'll have a chance to shift gears rather than have a learning curve. I think that's a real possibility. So I'm okay with a veteran guy, of course, but the right guy's the right guy no matter what age he is, I think.
Yeah. 18 of 22. The Sabres have won of their last 22 games. Buffalo tomorrow night in Toronto. Amherst hosting Hershey Wednesday and Friday. G. Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Happy hour in the sports bar. Snow day today.
Oh,
Trying to figure that out. We don't want to be like an old guy saying we don't need a snow day.
Children get to school.
Right. But, yeah, snow day today. Hopefully you and yours were safe all weekend through snow apocalypse, which I think we're at a place now where they have to almost overpromise and underdeliver with their expectations of what we're going to get, like when they're planting that seed of fear. You know, in order for us to take my favorite, an abundance of caution, they'll tell us more than what'll actually happen.
Oh, but Mike Danger, have you heard?
What?
You'd say fear?
Right.
Next weekend, we may have another storm.
No.
So make sure you watch the 13 VAM News tonight because your life may depend on it.
VAM?
Yes.
We're getting more snow? How much? Count hats go. How many?
Well, just tonight, 1-2 inches, but maybe more this weekend.
Damn it. Hopefully you hunker down. You watched some really bad football early in the day and what felt more like the Super Bowl.
Bad football? What? As compared to a preseason game, it was fantastic. I'm dome guy.
I've become dome guy. Hear me out. I don't like that the Patriots are back in the Super Bowl. And I think a big part of why they're back in the Super Bowl is because of how those conditions changed the impact of that game. It was too much. It impacted the game too much. I don't want to see guys slipping and sliding and falling down and losing their footing. I want to see execution. I want to see magnificent plays. We saw it in the late game. I mean, some of the plays in the late game were just ridiculous.
Did Sean Payton not look at the forecast? Like that's where I would say get the points early where you could, and you could say it's the conditions. Ultimately, the backup quarterback cost you the game with that stupid play, which I kind of marvel at that, the rules official. They got it right. Well, actually, they got it right on the – okay, very good there, Gene.
The rules officials in broadcasts have become completely useless. There's no reason that they need to throw it to Gene or Dean Blandino or anybody ever again. They offer nothing.
A good color commentator knows the rules. That's it. Like they don't. They're going to back up the league. You know that's going to be the case, and it just irritates me. Anyways, no, I think that what you saw in Denver yesterday with all these domes that are going to be happening, Cleveland, Chicago, potentially. Washington, Jacksonville, like that is going to become a rare thing. And case in point, we don't talk about this enough. Hey, you're going to get a snow day in Buffalo. You're not going to see it on the field. The field is heated. It's going to melt instantly. So where it might look good, for the snowflakes kind of going around and everything, you might get some snow on the sidelines. It's not going to be on the field whatsoever.
I guess if you wanted to fault Denver for anything, knowing that they play in Denver in January maybe have a little bit of a run game, just a little bit. I mean, they really didn't run against the Broncos, and they don't really try to run the football. It's not their strength. So the Patriots get by, and it's disgusting.
There is one good thing, though, and credit our friend Mark Vergelli for pointing this out. Tommy DeVito is in the Super Bowl. Tommy DeVito.
Hey, Cutlets is there on Media Row. Cutlets, because he's Italian.
Not that we would ever wish injury on anybody, but wouldn't play away danger.
Give me a Drake May practice injury that forces Tommy Cutlets into the lineup. Oh, yeah.
Would we root for New England if Tommy DeVito ended up being the starting quarterback? No, I could. That couldn't even. They didn't do it, but I saw you put out there. Schefter had to put the, Stephon Diggs in the snow and then the confetti picture in Kansas City. Yeah, that's fantastic. Very convenient too that his court date got pushed back to after the Super Bowl. What about Mac Hollins though? We don't talk about what he brought to the Bills' offense.
I kind of like the guy.
Yeah.
He's a freak, but I kind of like him. I like what he was last year for the Buffalo Bills. And clearly the receivers were not the same this year as they were last year. Hollins always seems to make the play when you need him to make the play. Great as a blocker in the run game. And you could say Shavers kind of picked up that slack this year.
He's a better version of Shavers.
I agree.
It's because Shavers, you found him and you developed him. You went and bottom line, it might have cost you just a little bit more money to keep Mac Hollins. And Mac Hollins, hey, with him, doing the cosplay thing or whatever, showing up, I could imagine like McDermott's like, all right, you know what, we can go.
Yeah,
cheaper,
right. He's a bit of a sideshow, but I don't know. I mean, I like the player. I like how at the end of every play, Mac Hollins is the teammate who's looking to pick guys up. He's looking actively to see which one of his teammates is on the ground that he can help up off the ground every play. I just think he's got a different makeup than a lot of players that you come across in the NFL. And yeah, I mean, I while you could be bitter about Diggs being there, I'm kind of excited for Mac Hollins. I think that's cool.
Yeah, and DeVito being there as well. Like, if you're a Patriot fan, we know plenty of them. This is found money, is it not?
Yeah.
How do you go from 4-13 to the Super Bowl? I'll tell you how, because everything else fell apart. Maybe it's going to be an interesting debate that I never think we're ever going to get the answer from. Did Josh Allen and everybody else cry in that locker room because they knew there stood a good chance that their head coach might be gone? Or in their heart of hearts, they knew this was the year and we just blew it?
Well, I also think that when you're that emotional, it's usually because you're guilty or you feel bad about something. You have a locker room, a roster of guys who didn't play to the level of their compensation. And this kind of ties into what we were just talking about with Hollins, right? Like Hollins, you could have kept that guy, but you didn't. Instead, you paid, what you paid for a tight end who you don't really feature that much, or
Bernard, who barely played,
a pass rusher who doesn't really get to the quarterback, and guys that Bean has the idea that people will use Josh Allen's cap hit as an excuse for the roster is not one that you should listen to.
The cap hit for Mac Hollins was $4 million. That was it in New England.
Yeah.
Which, okay, put it this way. Good luck finding not a starting receiver, a 1 through 5, a fifth receiver that you're going to be able to pay $4 million this coming season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just
you decided to spend the money on Josh Palmer.
Right.
How did that go?
Right. You just bad deals everywhere. Curtis Samuel, Josh Palmer. The Rousseau deal doesn't look that good. You could say, oh, you got good value out of Shakir, but Shakir
he fills a role.
Yeah. I won't listen to that. I won't listen to that from anybody that says, well, the roster, they can't Brandon Beane will try to sell that to you. You should not listen to that. You should not take that bait. Josh Allen's cap hit versus other quarterbacks around the NFL is actually very manageable. And teams look at what the Rams did and the cap hit of Stafford on their salary cap. They made it to the championship game. The Bills cap hit for Josh Allen is not as bad as they want you to believe it is. And you can win and build a roster even though you have your franchise quarterback under contract. You can win even though you don't have your quarterback on their rookie deal.
About the coaching search, so I think our lead story today, if there was one, do the Bills wait until after the Super Bowl? They cannot talk to Kubiak. Sorry, because they didn't get in the initial window because, the Bills were late in firing McDermott as compared to other teams. Now, that being said, came in today thinking, all right, Grant Udinski feels like the leading candidate. Davis Webb getting an interview and Nate Schlierhaus. Do we think that as people read a little bit more about the Rams passing game coordinator, what he's been able to do, and the fact that, hey, it was actually Sean McVay who kind of identified him at Iowa State, like, hey, come under me. Like, he's got a pretty good pedigree prior to his time. I like the fact that he coached in college. I like the fact that he played in college, that actually of all these candidates – well, Davis Webb had a little bit of experience in the NFL, but this guy was actually a pretty good quarterback for Illinois. Oh, by the way, was at Iowa State, coached up Brock Purdy, and look what he's become too.
If you go Davis Webb, here's a name for you. If you go Davis Webb, I don't know if he's landed a job this cycle or not. Why not bring in his offensive coordinator at Texas Tech or his head coach at Texas Tech? Why not bring in Kingsbury to be your OC?
I think Kingsbury did.
Did he land somewhere? I'm trying to piece together how one of the younger guys, whether you're talking about Webb or Dinsky, and Schiehlhaus has a little bit more maturity, but none of these guys have the experience where they can come in and be like, I'm going to bring in my guys. Like if you're Davis Webb, at least you could say, well, I've got a relationship with Kingsbury, but I don't know. Did he?
No, he interviewed with the Ravens and the Titans, so
still out there.
Still out there, probably. I mean, who's going to pay him the most?
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing here too. The thing that we won't find out is, how cheap are the Bills going to be with this hire? Are you going to hire a first-time guy because you can get them a lot cheaper, and then maybe you pay a little bit more to your coordinators? A guy like Kingsbury would command a higher salary, I would imagine. That's interesting too.
I always thought of Kingsbury just being a name, though, and not was he really that much better than Joe Brady? What you just came from?
I'm not sure. I think I'd be intrigued by that. I'd be interested to see what he would do with Josh Allen as his quarterback and Davis Webb as the head coach, the quarterback that he had in college. That he coached in college becomes the head coach while he's the OC.
I just keep coming back to this though, and there's risk here. The risk being, hey, has Davis Webb called plays? No.
Yeah.
Has Grant Udinski called plays in the NFL? No. How about Schlierhaus, the guy? Well, he did in college, but not in the NFL. Okay, then you are going to be taking this leap of faith. And how, over the course of 2 interviews, are you really going to know? That's why you're going to see some of these coordinators kind of go, and maybe they have in mind who they want as a defensive coordinator. Say, for example, Danger, I would just rather prefer the Bills take their time and wait until after the Super Bowl. Because you know what I liked last night in Seattle's offense? I love the play design. There's one play design where, hey, how on earth you might Rams want to cover Smith and Jigba, and there he is, wide open. Yeah. It's just a beautiful design that just had 2 clear out routes, boom, touchdown, easy read for Sam Darnold. I'm trying to picture how would this look in the Buffalo Bills offense.
Well, first thing you would need is a Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Okay, not available.
Not available.
Okay, next.
So yeah, I loved the action. I mean, watching that game felt like a different sport with McVay and Kubiak going back and forth offensively. That was a lot of fun. And you're right. There's some really, really well-designed plays. This is also some really, really great individual efforts. I mean, Seattle's run game, Walker, the moves, Walker being featured is a revelation. I mean, we always knew he's good, but man, some of the moves he was making, his ability to get free, the speed in open space. Man, good player. They got a lot of, I just keep going back, Russell Wilson trade. They got a lot of good young talent. That defense is ridiculous. Their corners, Witherspoon is fantastic. Ugh. Anyways, yeah, I if Kubiak is their guy, you wait. But I don't know that. I don't know. Do they had to have somebody in mind, knowing that was going to be a possibility.
Well, there's 4 openings left. You want to play a little where they're going?
All right, sure.
Okay, Arizona. That's the tough one I'm starting with here.
I'm going with LaFleur. Mike LaFleur. That's the other LaFleur.
I'm going to go with Weaver.
Oh, Anthony Weaver.
I think Weaver out there for another interview today, apparently. The Raiders.
That feels like Kubiak.
Agreed. And you could say, the Bills are a better job. Is it? The expectations here, sky high. You have like a 3-year runway where you could work with Mendoza and develop the offense the way you want to. And it's Vegas.
And do you have the sense, like I'm trying to connect dots, like what from the Bills, like what's the connection from the Bills and Kubiak? How would
I haven't figured out anything.
I don't know that there is, right?
Yeah.
Other than what we've talked about with back channeling and agents, and whereas there's a relationship with Davis Webb, there's a relationship with Brian Daboll. You don't know that with Kubiak. Feel like Kubiak to the Raiders.
Browns.
God. Well, I know that Shieldhouse is going to interview with the Bills if they give him permission. That's also if he finishes his homework for the Browns. The Browns are making their candidates do all of this homework.
What's his SAT score?
Yeah, so he's got it. Once he's done writing his thesis, he can maybe then interview with the Bills.
Udinsky, by the way, pulling his name out of Cleveland. Which,
yeah.
Like how many people, McDaniel put his name. You know what? I'd rather be a coordinator over here than be your head coach.
That's
wow.
right. That's right.
Like, what's the difference in pay between a coordinator and being a head coach? I think it's certainly, but you've made your money. It's like a life decision here. I don't want that job. You do have a Pro Bowl quarterback, though. I'm not kidding. Like, just a little sidebar here that Shedeur Sanders was named as a replacement today.
Yeah.
Which means we should just do away with the
You
Pro
could
Bowl.
be outraged if you actually cared about what the Pro Bowl has become. I don't. So I'm not outraged.
No.
I don't care.
No, you don't
That
care.
story was, when I saw that cross my feet, I'm like, oh, this is going to piss a lot of people off.
Oh, who cares?
And I don't care.
Well, the point is, when I get to the Bills, I wish I could say, here's
Well, you
what
didn't
it's
pick
gonna...
who's getting the Browns.
I'll go with Schleelhouse.
Yeah, I'm going to say Schwartz.
Okay,
I'm going to say
Schwartz
is last man standing. Nobody wants the job. Schwartz is the guy, and he's there, and more of the same for Cleveland.
Well, it may be credit to the Bills after the, pardon the language, show that was the press conference last week that, hey, this week you're being a little bit more buttoned up, and there haven't been any leaks that so-and-so knocked it out of the park or whatever.
Got to wow the interview.
Yeah, like there's, so is it Udinsky? And can we kind of like explore that option? To me, if you're just going based off of the betting markets, which you can't do here in New York State, Udinsky is the betting favorite right now. But who knows? Who knows if that will change tonight? I've just come to the conclusion, this is just me reading things here, where I know Bills fans, some want Daboll, and it was a good time. And yes, Daboll the last time in the 13 seconds, the Bills had the number one passing game, the number one offense. It was a lot of fun. I just think his personality wouldn't fit with what Brandon Beane wants to build here. Just my read on it.
Yeah. God, I'm going back to Davis Webb for the Bills. I've right today. That's where I knowing that he was available today, knowing that they had the interview today. I subscribe to your theory that Brandon Beane wants somebody that he can mold, that's malleable, that won't push back as easily as somebody like Daboll with a big personality would. Webb feels like that guy. Now, if you get Davis Webb, and let's say it is a package deal, it's Davis Webb and it's Cliff Kingsbury. Hey, I'm in on that. I would take that. Defense, I don't know if Weaver gets the job in Arizona or not, but that would be my guy for defense. I would bring back Weaver.
Yeah, if McDermott is gone, Babbage and that whole staff Sorry, it's a rough business. You're collateral damage. You've got to bring in somebody new. And with that, I'm reading my first mock draft of the season, Danger, and they're picking the linebacker from Georgia. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, you're going to need help in all areas at all three levels there.
Who knows what this roster looks like, man? I mean, that is going to be when the league year starts in March.
Ooh.
That is going to be fascinating. Who makes the team? Who do they move off of? Who do they bring in? And then who do they ultimately draft? Whew.
Well, I think the days of, hey, you were a Buffalo Bill, come on back.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it got you. You did it on necessity mainly this year. You were so banged up. I don't really have a feel of where the Bills are going to go. If you had to say right now, I believe it's Udinski. When I hear the Schefter report today, and he's not making stuff up, that he thinks that all these jobs are going to be filled up by midweek. Whoa. That's where we let off today.
Why is he putting that out there?
Who's he hearing that from?
Does Kubiak's agent want him to stay in Seattle?
Well, how did Udinski put it this way? So the story with Udinski is it's either going to be A or B. A, he's the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, and if he doesn't get it, then B, he's back in Jacksonville with a pay raise.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, right? Good for him, right? Who told Schefter that? Oh, of course, it was Udinski's agent. So we're maybe thinking Udinski is the guy. Maybe it's not. Credit the Bills. They're keeping the real tight lip. I think that you are the best position of these four. You don't need to rush this. You can take your time filling out the staff. It's been done before.
We learned over the weekend that it'll be Mike McCarthy going to Pittsburgh. And now, a decision on whether or not Aaron Rodgers returns for another season in Pittsburgh.
Were we going to really be talking about this in June? Are we really going to be talking about his? They seem to think they figured out who the imaginary wife is.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I actually love how they handled that. The idea that they pieced it together, they identified who she is, they believe she is indeed real, but they're not going to give him what he wants, which is a full-blown, here's who she is, and here, just so he can come back and say, the media is out to get me. You see, I love that they're not giving him that satisfaction.
Right.
He's given just enough hints, just enough breadcrumbs where if you did the work, you could probably figure out who she is, but they're not going to give him that satisfaction, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's just kind of a sign that maybe we're just kind of tired of that guy altogether. Personally, I wanted it to be AI. I wanted it's his phone. You see these things. I'm in love with my phone. She tells me whatever. She being the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have plenty of Steeler fan friends, and none of them are excited about this. It's weird. I would say if you're a silver lining guy, it's an upgrade from Mike Tomlin. I think it's an upgrade from Mike Tomlin.
Well, this feels like a drastic departure because the Steelers were always very good of, okay, well, we're talking about who's the next young guy. Hey, Tomlin, pretty good hire. Before that, Cowher. How long is this guy going to be here? Maybe 5 years, if that, McCarthy. He got the job because he knew to speak the language of Yinzer.
Well, he's also worked with Omar Khan. He's worked with the GM, so he had an in. And, yeah, he'll speak that language, and maybe it is another 5-10 seasons. Who knows? But I think right now, if you're a Steeler fan, that is still an upgrade from what you've had in Mike Tomlin. I think at the end of the Tomlin era, everybody was like, we got to get rid of this guy. This isn't enough. This isn't good enough. I think you could get a little bit more with Mike McCarthy. And in case you missed it, the blip on the coaching carousel that was Phillip Rivers, where he interviewed on Friday, also withdrew from consideration today.
How noble.
Mm-hmm.
Then what was it really about? Did you just want to, go and hang at the Pagula compound there for a few hours?
Say yo.
Did you really think you were a real candidate? You're pulling your name, what did the agent call? Like, hey, well, can we get a second interview? Nah, I think we're good. All right, then we're pulling our.
I know he didn't win any games, but I'll give the guy credit for coming back and giving it his all. And I feel like he made an impact on that team in a short amount of time while he was there. There's still a thing about showing up, doing it the right way, and letting others see that you're doing it the right way.
Well, I have had a 5-minute interaction with Phillip Rivers. The guy from my 5-minute interaction, you might remember this place and time, right? So the Chargers beat the Bills, right? And we're going to have Rivers on, and I've never met him, explain who I was. And he's out with his phone, and he's looking at Vikings and Packers. And it's when the NFL starts with the you can't really touch the quarterback, and they have some ridiculous roughing the passer calls. And there's one against Matthews of Green Bay. And, like, Rivers does that thing where he kind of slaps me. He's like, look at this. You can't call that. This is the quarter. So he's watching, which you think would be the common thing. It's not a common thing for other quarterbacks to be watching other games just when your game finished up. So that kind of told me that, okay, this guy actually loves football and he's ready to comment. I thought a little surprising, though, that, he had a great career and, okay, you've got a big family and you're going to be coaching high school football. I just didn't think he would be jumping back in the way he did.
Let's get to a round of shots next, Gino.
Yeah, there's plenty to get to. I got a feeling we're going to be talking hockey here about that team in Buffalo. Jessica Pegula continuing last night, a little bit different. Congratulations coming to the Seattle Seahawks from someone I'm sure that Seahawk fans really don't want them to congratulate. And there's a local TV station, Danger. I feel like this is on the verge of going viral. Beyond Rochester.
Well, I don't know that it'll go beyond Rochester, but
it's gone over to Buffalo, yeah.
It's certainly Western New York viral. We'll get to that. and we'll close things up with last call as well. You can have the final word in the sports bar. Join us at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
You're listening.
Bills have completed their interview today with Broncos passing game coordinator Davis Webb. Phillip Rivers has withdrawn his name from consideration. And we learned this afternoon the Bills requesting permission to talk to Rams passing game coordinator Nate Schlierhaus. This according to Adam Schefter. Of the jobs open, Chris Brown says Buffalo far and away the best.
Because of the 4 jobs remaining, I think Buffalo's is clearly the most attractive. So because the Bills' job is the most attractive, if you truly believe that as Bills ownership and brass, I think you say it's more important to get the right guy than it is the date we make the decision on the guy.
Meanwhile, Joe Brady has completed a second interview today with the Raiders. Amerks hosting Hershey Wednesday and Friday. Sabres tomorrow night are in Toronto. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Listen to The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. The Fan, Rochester.
Happy Hour continues on The Fan. Let's get to a round of shots, Gino.
I can't believe I'm going to read this sentence. The Sabres right now are on pace for 100 points this season. They've won 18 of their last 22. Saturday afternoon, not even close. 5-0. They blanked the Islanders on the road. Alex Lyon won his 9th straight start.
How many starts in a row?
9.
9 times.
Tying a team record set by the great Jerry Desjardins in 1976.
Jerry Desjardins.
Lions' last loss was on November the 28th. Buffalo, as we mentioned, in Toronto tomorrow night.
Beat them. Like, do what good teams do. Beat bad teams. Beat Toronto.
We're at the point now where you want not a wild card, not top 3, home ice. Get to the second spot in the division.
I just think to myself, like, Toronto's a team that's going to fight and claw and scratch and be a pest and find their way into the postseason. You would imagine. Beat them. Like, no excuses. You if you're better than Toronto, beat them. Beat them tomorrow. I'm excited. I'm excited that we're talking about meaningful hockey, games that don't feel like throwaways. Like the way they're playing, the way they keep winning. I mean, they got shot out of a cannon that second period against the Islanders. You could say they were sluggish in the first. It wasn't a great period, no score. The way they came out in the second, the Islanders had no answer. None.
So, trade deadline, you're clearly buyers. What do you want?
Well, we did see some action, and we'll learn more tomorrow when we talk to Mike Leone.
From the Amerks level,
Yeah. This is Marty and Duffer on the trade that was facilitated between the Sabres organization and the Hurricanes organization.
They did make a little trade afterwards, which had been in the works for a little bit because the Amerks have been decimated by defense lack of availability, right? Injuries in Rochester, but call-ups to the Sabres have really, really hurt. So I can't even tell you the number of times I've seen this, just in my time with the organization, where you move off of a guy like Victor Neuchev because you have to get somebody. You have to get somebody to help the blue line right now. So they get Gavin Bayreuther, who hasn't been in the NHL for 3 years, but he's well known to Jarmo Kekalainen, and he is going to be greatly appreciated, already is, by head coach Michael Leone. And guess what? He's a winner because empty netters are for winners, and that's how Gavin scored his first NHL goal years ago with Dallas.
You're right. Like, they are struggling to have enough bodies on the blue line. So what do? Well, you turn a third-round pick in 2022, a player that still may have a little bit of upside in Victor Neuchev, but hasn't really shown like the others, like Oslin and Roseanne and Helen News and all those guys. So, you know what? You need to get something for your AHL team. You make it happen.
Yeah. Do you want to guess how many defensemen the Amerks have used already this year? And they're barely past the halfway point.
12.
12 is correct. Yeah, that's a lot.
That was a guess.
But the Sabres are still best in the NHL since December the 9th at 18-3-1.
Yeah, so Bayreuther, 122 NHL games. Dallas Columbus, 271 AHL games. Okay.
You got reinforcements. That was a trade for the Amerks.
Yeah, that's a trade for the Amerks. And like with Neuchev, was there anything to say, oh, give him a look up in Buffalo? Not to this point.
Pretty underwhelming.
Yeah. Jessica Pegula hosting a podcast with Madison Keys. I guess we're at the point right now who doesn't have a podcast, but
it's a business card. It's this generation's business card. We used to carry business cards, hand out business cards. Now you have to have a podcast. A podcast is a business card. Have to have a podcast.
I guess so. Two facing each other at the Australian Open with a little side bet. Don't you love these? Pegula would have to wear a Travis Kelce jersey. Keys would have to eat apple pie with melted cheese.
Oh.
Which I think clearly there's one. I would do that anyways, right? You don't have to lose a bet. Pegula won, so she's not wearing the Chiefs jersey. She goes to the quarterfinals. Keys was the defending champ, by the way. Pegula's next opponent, the number 4 seed, Amanda Anisimova. That'll be coming up somewhere tomorrow night in the overnight.
I remember Terry doing the thing in the press conference last week where he's like, I haven't even seen my daughter play tennis. And I'm like, in my back of my head, I'm like, are you still bitter? Are you still mad that she wrote the letter in the Players Tribune? He's still holding on to that, right? Like she was the one that kind of broke all the family secrets to the world.
Well, explain this to me. Her husband was working before they even met and got married. He's working for Pegula Sports and Entertainment.
This is Jessica's husband.
Yeah, and then he meets Jessica, and they fall in love, and they get married, and now he no longer works in whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So, okay, was that I just don't want to mix work and family?
Yeah.
I would think he would stay in the family business. Seems kind of opposite to me.
Weird.
Yeah. You want to talk weird? This day in the NBA, some games being made up from yesterday. This has this, okay, we just need to get this thing in sort of vibe because a couple games yesterday canceled because of the weather. Pacers and Hawks, they made that up today. Hawks win by 16. Sixers in Charlotte. Sixers get blown out by 37. They announced 16,000 in Charlotte today. Yeah, sure, whatever you want to announce. 5 games in the NBA tonight. Celtics hosting Portland. That is the 8 o'clock game on Peacock.
I still, when I hear it, whenever I hear the phrase, my head explodes. Abundance of caution. I still hear it every now and then. I heard it with.
I heard it somewhere.
I heard it with the school closing announcement. I want to say not this one, but earlier in the month when there was a snow day. Out of an abundance of caution. When I heard it, I'm like, oh God, please. Did we not hear that enough in the early part of the decade? I don't want to hear abundance of caution ever again. I'm done with abundance of caution.
See, there are certain words, Danger, that associate with only one thing. Abundance, caution. That's where. Ample.
I'm not falling for your trap.
Parking.
Oh, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say something else.
Okay. Normally ample parking. See, I was actually going to. Now here's the punchline, buddy.
Go ahead.
Discreet. That's in the, it's kind of a pervy commercial, like a discreet package.
Yes.
Yeah,
discreet package.
Yeah, whatever. Anyhow.
Okay.
Your public service announcement here from the sports bar. Actually, it's for Danger.
I'm good.
Down about the dark weather.
No,
and
I'm
the
good.
Cold, dark skies.
Feel good. Everything I need, I have. I know it's cloudy every day, but there's blue skies behind those clouds, Gino.
All right. Put on tennis. Put on golf.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, the PGA Tour is back. And what do you know? Scotty Scheffler won again.
No, come on. Really?
Right. This win puts him over $100 million in career earnings. Only Tiger and Rory have reached that mark. The tour this week heading to Torrey Pines, and then you get the Phoenix Open Super Bowl week.
I know that I feel like I heard Brooks Koepka is back on the PGA Tour.
Read something about Patrick Reed too, like not happy with his lived it, whatever at this point.
Yeah, right.
Play wherever you want to play. I don't care. One former Seahawk great weighing in on his team getting back to the Super Bowl. These the words from Mr. Unlimited. Quote,
let's ride. Let's ride.
Broncos.
Let's ride.
Perfect.
Okay.
One more time. Broncos country. Let's ride.
Broncos country.
Let's die.
Ride.
Let's die.
Broncos country. Let's ride.
Perfect.
Broncos country.
these the words of Russell Wilson. Sam Darnold's comeback story over the past 2 years has been one of the most inspirational things to watch. Cool seeing him overcome. Congrats, bro. Hope you win it. Go Hawks.
That's on brand. That's on brand for Russell Wilson.
Didn't he end every press conference with a
Go Hawks? That was, yeah. And Josh doesn't go Bills. I mean, like, what's the expectation now for a quarterback?
Yeah, I don't think Josh ends press conferences that way. Just kind of nods his head, and that's about
when
it.
when the camera's on and it's a national audience, it's a go Bills. I think that's become an expectation now from a quarterback. Look at how Russ did it for so long. Look at it. That's the example you want to set.
Finally, it is the easiest assignment for any TV reporter. The man on the street. That's where you just go up to some rando. Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, I don't know if you knew this or not yesterday, Danger, we had a winter storm.
Yeah.
So
it's January after all.
Let's go to News 8 here for their man on the street interview.
Well, I went to speak with some folks around Rochester to see what they're up to during this winter storm, and it's clear this weather is making its presence known in homes and on the roads.
Stay home, enjoy your time with your family, stay safe, stay warm.
The person they're interviewing in that quote is Amerks goaltender Devin Levi. The reporter having no idea who that is, or the person maybe at the master control who has to type in Devin Levi, or maybe the anchor. No idea. I thought it's
man.
You don't have to like sports, but you got to know something about the town. That's the number one guy on the team. He's probably like, oh, hey, yeah.
He's a Rochester resident, Gene.
Rochester resident?
He's a Rochester resident. That's all you need to know. It's more important that he's a Rochester resident than he is Amerks goaltender.
My question is, did Channel 8 do this to go viral in a way?
Oh,
because that would be the way to do it.
The thing is, if you sit around and say, hey, if we do this, we'll go viral, you never go viral. That's not how it works.
No.
They didn't know. They didn't know, and that's why we're talking about it, because they didn't know, and we're pointing and laughing. And, hey, good on Devin Levi. I mean, I know that
he didn't go to the "you know who I am" card.
Yes, not only that, but I know that there was a lot of rumors around Devin Levi earlier this year, and to know that he is a Rochester resident. Well, maybe Devin Levi is actually embracing life in Rochester a little bit more. Good for him.
He's wearing Zubaz too.
Bill Zubaz, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, looks like it. Yeah,
comfortable. They are comfortable. Not really warm, but definitely comfortable. Well, that's Rochester resident Devin Levi giving his advice. Stay warm. Stay inside. I got to hear it again. Devin Levi on News 8.
Well, I went to speak with some folks around Rochester to see what they're up to during this winter storm, and it's clear this weather is making its presence known in homes and on the roads.
Stay home, enjoy your time with your family, stay safe, stay warm.
Great advice.
Thank you. You know what? He's a role model for our children and our grandchildren.
What was Devin doing outside?
He's shoveling.
Oh, he was shoveling?
Shoveling, yeah.
Okay. I was wondering, street hockey? Is he playing a game? A little pickup street hockey?
No, he's just clearing off his walkway. I can only imagine he's living in Park. I don't know that. But
we don't know where he lives.
We don't know where he lives. Wouldn't tell you if I did.
That's pretty great.
How do you're that kid reporter too? You're like, oh my gosh,
no idea.
No idea.
Well, Mike Leone's conversation tomorrow will be interesting. Amerks head coach stopping by, joining us in the sports bar 425 as he does every week. That'll be exciting, and we'll talk to him about Rochester resident Devin Levi.
Also, if you're going to the game Friday, Danger and I are out there 3 to 6 from the Blue Cross Arena for Hall of Fame night, so we'll be in the atrium. So, yes, hope to meet you coming up
Friday night will be fun at the arena. Hershey, the opponent, both Wednesday and Friday night. Also joining us tomorrow on the show, Matt Perino, covering the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. That'll be fun as always, and we'll get the latest on the Buffalo Bills head coaching search. If you missed Dan Fates, 13 Wham, Buffalo Plus, Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUpstate.com. You can go back and listen in the Odyssey app with Rewind. Any part of the show you may have missed is there for you. Also on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. Find us wherever you get your shows. If you like podcasts, search out the Sports Bar, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We will talk to you again tomorrow afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock. BetMGM tonight is on the way next on The Fan Rochester.
Got a smart speaker at home? Listen to the sports leader.